Hey everyone, welcome to Dialog Choices Podcast. Ready or not, like it or not, because you clicked on this on accident, it auto-played via from your PewDiePie video.
Wake up!
Let me
Stop
tell you.
falling asleep with YouTube on.
That would be Wake up!
Jesus.
That'd be a really
should
weird
put a little makeup.
autoplay suggested video when we go from PewDiePie to Dialog Choices episode 32 or whatever.
Podcast. That's
What
why you need to
algorithm
name them.
are you on?
You need to give them dates. Dates are better, Keith. I promise you.
Just name
PewDiePie
it.
people
Just name it PewDiePie guest.
Podcast.
Special guest,
Yeah.
PewDiePie. If we say him enough, if we say his name enough, does that make him a guest?
Is it like Bloody Mary?
You just say his name 3 times in a mirror, and then a shrieking sound comes in. I guess he has.
better
Does he do
not
that
to.
anymore? He doesn't do that anymore, does he?
Does he do
The
YouTube anymore?
high-pitched, irritating intro. I think it's like a Jacksepticeye thing now. I think he might have moved on. I haven't watched. I was
I
gonna
don't
say
know,
I haven't
man.
watched a PewDiePie
Yeah.
video in ages, but I basically never watched them. Basically, in the early
Yeah, I
phases, back when I invented Let's Plays. This is the old story, but it was the fact that was it just the fact that fucking Andrew wrote a review of Amnesia? It was like he said play Amnesia, get Insomnia, and I was like, oh, we should record that. That'd be probably be a pretty funny idea for a YouTube video, and that I had never heard of a Let's Play yet. This was a year before Game Grumps even existed, and then we recorded Amnesia Justine and stuff like that, and then I found PewDiePie on YouTube via funny moments compilations where he just
Amnesia.
a jump scare would happen
absolutely
and he'd make
propelled.
weird, confusing noises. That was the thing.
I think that might have been my first interaction with video Let's Plays, but
Yeah.
it probably was Markiplier.
And I never heard
But
about him
I-
again
I
until
remember-
controversies.
I remember seeing Let's Play threads on old forums as early as 2007, because before that I didn't really have internet, where
Yeah.
people would just post screenshots and describe what they were doing in their games. And those threads had a bunch of people contributing and talking and all that. And those were popular. And I was like, why would you do that? Obviously, I didn't know the first thing.
Yeah, there was screenshot threads on something awful or something, and people would Let's Play via a bunch of screenshots and a blog style narrative of what was happening.
And people would choose. Yeah. It was around also letting the audience choose things every once in a
This
while.
is an element of just social engagement and gaming as a medium is just a thing that iterates forever. And almost every internet subculture thing is just way older than you expect it to be in a weird way. And a lot of stuff just isn't actually internet culture. There's the stuff that goes so far back that something that you think of as a weird internet thing that could only exist on the internet was actually being propagated via zines before the internet was even around. And you're like, what the fuck? How did you find each other?
Accident.
I'll always remember the Down the Rabbit Hole episode about furries, where I'm just I don't understand. This community already existed, and they made physical magazines or zines, I guess, which is technically different, and they just printed them themselves, and the whole thing just existed already, and then the internet just made it more. How did they find each other? How did those things happen?
How does anybody
It's
find
so
each other, really?
specific.
There's so many people.
There's a lot of things that are like that were, once the internet came around and everyone got to communicate with each other, it's oh, there's other people who think wrong like I do. And then they just huddled together and created this gross community. But
Big Tiger Daddy isn't wrong think, though.
I mean, it's
No, wait,
it's definitely a step backwards for us as a species.
Seems like just
But-
absolutely everything's way older than you think it is. I was listening to an episode of You're Wrong About while I was cooking breakfast today, and they talked about the Me Too movement having been I already forget how old, but it obviously came up a few years ago, but it was way older than that. It didn't just it felt like it started that day when it started taking off for that movement, but that was an ongoing thing for years and years before it became this big cultural zeitgeist moment that during that particular week, where all in one month, I think it was Harvey Weinstein and Louis C.K. and Kevin Spacey and so on, and like, but like that was like so far into the life cycle, surprisingly. And like it's really weird going to like the backstory of things. Like, we're biased to think that the first time we hear about something was where it came from, and usually it has a really long and interesting backstory. Like, what is it? I know about Be Gay, Do Crimes because of Night in the Woods, and that is a fucking rabbit hole to go down. That goes places.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this wasn't just like a thing that came up. It was the fact that that game is made by a very leftist dude, and he has things that he's trying to introduce to people. I've been following him on Scott Benson on Twitter for like the last year, and it has been an adventure. He's like, oh yeah,
it's funny.
This would be the guy who wrote and drew that game.
It's funny to sometimes it kind of makes sense, like you're saying, where a game really has the subtext and the text all very there, and then you just learn about the personality that made it, or the personalities, and it all clicks together. But other times it's sort of weird. It's been a while, but the guy that makes the soundtrack, or made the soundtrack for Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, Matt Ullman, I think he contributed for the soundtrack for Diablo 3, and so he's still kind of active, and is just a musician. But if you go onto his Twitter page, he gets into the wildest Twitter spats with randos who just like nobody knows about them, and I don't actually know how he gets into these conversations. But almost nobody follows him on Twitter, and it's his account. It's to the point where is that really him? Is somebody impersonating him? No, it's his account, because he's friends with what's the name of the guy that made Diablo? I forget. David. I don't remember. But still, like, it just gets into and he's not as a refreshing change. He's not actually a right-wing lunatic. He's actually very radicalized left-wing. So he gets into some really, really weird spats every once in a while.
It's so depressing.
There goes
go on Twitter and be like, let's follow the creator of The Witness. Oh no. I'm sad now.
I was thinking of others, but yeah.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of really disappointing people. In particular, a lot of game developers and a lot of indie devs and so on are the particular kind of like white collar tech bros that think that they can hack the market and all that, and they often have really disappointing views because they work in environments that are very echo chambery and just kind of the same type of person repeating. And like, you're going to hear a lot more from 4chan in that community than you are from anyone else. Like, that kind of insidious. It's like when you're in high school as a white guy and you go to like LANs and it's a bunch of other white guys with computers, and it's like half of them are literally browsing 4chan during the LAN, and it's like that's where you get
and
like
some of them are wearing merch.
Yeah, it's where you get the helicopter jokes and stuff, and you're like, oh, you can just uncritically repeat this stuff for a while and then just kind of become that person without really realizing it, and then then it's like an attack whenever anybody ever questions like why you say the things you do or whatever, and then you just like it was so disappointing to follow the creator of The Witness, Jonathan Blow, and like, one, he's like, I've got a thing set up so it deletes my tweets after like 2 weeks, so nobody can go into my history and cancel me or whatever. And like, but like, just the act
joke's on you.
There's a thing that happens when you actually follow somebody, which is that you see what they like now, because like that's a thing that Twitter does. Is like it treats likes as like algorithmic retweets essentially, or like it kind of chooses which ones to show and so on. It leads to a really weird decision-making process whenever I like or retweet something, it's like, okay, well, if I retweet it, goes on my timeline, which itself is still algorithmic. Like, maybe some people see it and some people don't, but like the likes are like, who knows what's going to happen. But it's kind of it's like a weird choice of like, you're still making a choice of whether other people should see this thing, and that like colors it, as opposed to whether or not you just actually like something. But he would just repeatedly he would always like tweets from this like SJW parody account that was just about mocking woke people, and I'm like, really making it hard for me to follow you just to hear about your video game recommendations, dude. I just want to hear about the next fucking Steven sausage roll. want this shit. Really, really
Yeah.
bummer to hear your thoughts when it's not about puzzle games, boy.
Yeah, that
I
sort
hope
of stuff
he never
is like
has a
immediately
story in
unfollowed from
any of
me.
his games or themes,
Well-
because Jesus Christ. Even though it kind
Braid
of has
was
already.
pretty strong on themes.
Yeah,
Or the one
I need to.
theme.
I still need
It's
to
a very
revisit
simple
Braid
theme.
from in modern day, but yeah.
I remember I did an interview with him. Actually, it was one of my first interviews with developers back when I had.
You did a Jonathan
little-
Blow interview?
Yeah, I emailed him and said, "Hey, do you want to do an interview?" and yeah, it was over email, but still, it
Yeah.
was a back and forth and all that. And talking about Braid and all that, that was around when Braid came out. And the thing about, and you mentioned indies. The thing about indie developers is that a lot of the time, they are, they're nice people, approachable. Sometimes they're even humble. And in terms of even like they might have shitty attitudes or shitty opinions, but they might even have those shitty opinions in a humble way, if you know what I mean. Like they may not change them, but they're like, oh, I'm just saying my thing and all that. So it's easy for somebody who values that sort of niceness to just sort of like give them the benefit of the doubt. What happened with the Five Nights at Freddy's guy recently? Oh yeah, he was found out to give hundreds of thousands of dollars to the DNC in the United States. And people were like, "Oh, he donates to the Republicans," and people who didn't like the Republicans were all up in arms about that.
The DNC.
And then people who liked the Republicans, sorry,
I think it's RNC. DNC is the Democrats.
RNC, yeah, there we go. Yeah, basically, the moment it becomes a part of the discussion, obviously people will take sides and say that's a good thing or a bad thing. But what really struck me. And for the record, I say it's a bad thing. But what really struck me is just how many people would use his niceness, and I'm talking about the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, and his humbleness and willingness to help out and be correct in his business dealings and all that sort of stuff, and use that in defense of his opinions and in defense of his political donations and stuff, and just like, oh, let him do his thing and all that. And I think that's very common in indie circles. But if you go for big AAA studios, you're never gonna even get to know those people. Who knows the like on a personal level who the creator of, I don't know, Borderlands or GTA. They're just, they're less human in a way, right? So if they say crappy things, people are just gonna, no, you crappy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it should already be accepted that, one, it should be public knowledge that if you donate to political candidates, it is a publicly accessible list of things. Like you can just go online and find out who does that and who they donate to and how much they donate to. But more importantly, it's funny to me that somebody who owns a property that is very successful and relies heavily on what I would imagine to be children who do not believe the same things you do, it would be more pertinent to create a shell company that donates to those people, and you just put money into that shell company,
Or just
do
be
the
like
thing.
all the rest.
Well, just do the thing that rich people do, which is they create 100 different companies and then have those companies donate to a person that they like. So that way you don't know that like Elon Musk is donating half of his money to people you don't like. You just see the outside front, which
Exactly.
is like, hey, look, funny guy says space is cool. Like you don't see the insidious backside where how much money he's donating into people to like get away with terrible stuff. But like creators, especially like creators of like properties that are popular on the internet, spend a lot of time trying to or like bemoaning and being upset about this kind of culture, but doing nothing to avoid that problem. Like that this kind of issue would easily be solved if you just didn't be obvious about it. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like walking into a McDonald's with a gun and being upset that people tell you you can't go to McDonald's with a gun. You're like, well, I don't understand what the problem is. Like, sir, what? what did you think was going to happen? You walked in here doing this, like you knew this was going to happen. You specifically are obviously a part of the culture that knows that this is a problem. Like, I can't imagine the guy, the Five Nights at Freddy guy. I don't even know his name. Does he have a name?
I don't know
Just
either.
call
He
him the
probably
FNAF guy.
does.
Scott Coughing. Okay, so Coughing doesn't understand that.
Just look up FNAF on.
Every time I say his
Scott-
name, I get I. So my primary
Scott
exposure to
Crotton.
Scott is that I played one of his older games, and now I get comments every day correcting me on how to pronounce his last name, but I don't remember the correction or what I said originally. But I said it wrong, and
Yeah,
the
that's the
older
problem.
comments are just that over and over again.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm just gonna call him Coughing. I mean, what's he gonna do? Tell me I'm wrong? Like, I don't care. Anyways, this guy, I don't even know what I was gonna say. This guy basically is obviously he's like doting to people who are their entire persona is being upset about like the very obvious rotary phone shit, like cancel culture and whatever woke means anymore and that kind of stuff. And like to think that someone, even like the guy who created The Witness, like those people are so fine-tuned into this idea, this problem, that it's funny to me that they're not doing, like, not doing everything they can to avoid that problem. Like the guy who made The Witness, what is his name? Jonathan. These people
Blow.
don't matter enough to remember their names. It doesn't matter. The guy who made The Witness. He all he needs to do is just make a personal account, lock that personal account, and then just have a business facing account. And you've solved the day. Like, you don't have to worry about it making a stupid bot that deletes your tweets every 2 weeks. What a shitty extra effort when you could just create a free Twitter profile and then just be shitty on that where no one can see it. Like, it's funny to like think about, you have to publicly acknowledge you like these things, but then delete it so people can't cancel you later. But you have to like let people know that you like these things, is like the mentality there. You can't just privately enjoy something. You have to let everyone know that you publicly like this thing, but you don't want anyone to remember you publicly liked it. So you have to remove the evidence, which is like, I could just screenshot your tweets, you dumbass. Like, I could just literally screenshot your tweets. Like, it's not like you've beaten the system.
And besides, like, for certainly for big name developers, I mean, indie or otherwise, like any drama that gets propped up on social media is immediately gonna get reposted on websites. Like, there's so many gaming websites out there that do basically shotgun spread content. It just completely unfocused because they need clicks. They need clicks. So anything that a developer says is immediately, oh, okay, this developer posted this today, should we do an article about it? Can we spend the 5 minutes to write the article? Because it is like, it's brutal for gaming journalism, really, because most of it is just reposting. It isn't journalism, it's just reposting. And so if he says, like Jonathan Blow did, was he the one that said that women aren't strong enough for, which one was it? I forget. There's so many people with crap takes online.
Bing has a really great description for the Fafnik creator. I think it's broken, but it's great. It just says, the Fafnik creator is most recognized for being a game designer. Here are more key facts about him. Gen X was more liberated, and females felt much freer to initiate hookups, dates, and sex.
Well,
It's just like, I don't know what. I don't
does
know what
Bing
happened.
just try to like bot generate biographies of people? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, look at this fucking thing. What?
It's like when they let an AI on Twitter and it just turns into a lunatic. Like, except it's writing people's biographies and leaving them.
Yeah, look at
to
this,
just
look at
be
this
found.
biography. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not even like, it's not even saying that he said the facts. It's just saying a thing. Wait,
Oh,
what?
I know. I remember what Jonathan Blow said. He said that women are biologically less interested in tech than men. Which is
okay. So the reason this happened is because it's pulling it is just automatically pulling data from websites that talk about this person. And one of them is like a website called datingrumor.com. And it's just one of those crappy, like, I don't know what you call them. Like, they're just pop-up doxing websites. Like, they're just trying to like find everything about him. Like, what's his name, his date of birth, age, birthplace, whatever, all this stuff for a popular person. And one of the lines in there is that line where it's like for his bio, like just his bio. And it says in a weird, like, copy paste thing, just like, he is most recognized for being a game designer. He started a YouTube career, or where is it?
I've made such a mistake.
What happened?
There it is.
Artists calling for censorship don't know what art is. Scientists citing consensus don't know what science is. Teachers indoctrinating students don't know what teaching is. Journalists parroting propaganda don't know what reporting is. Programming us all day long. I'm realizing
Sounds like
I'm
a really boring System of a Down song.
I'm realizing it was really a good call that I stopped following Jonathan Blow before like all of 2020 happened.
Is that one of his recent tweets?
No,
in
it's
the
his
last 2
like.
weeks?
I've been scrolling through his likes and just
his
being really
likes,
sad. There's anti-vaxxer stuff in here. There's a lot of like own the
course
libs
there
type
is.
things going on. Like, my body, my choice. Okay, so I should be able to not get the COVID, right? No, not like that. Like those kinds of like, oh wow, owned them, flawless logic, beat them, take that. He's really concerned about deplatforming. It's like 50% of his likes.
I mean, if I were him, I would also be concerned about that because risk.
Lots of liked tweets about how the police should totally take care of riots and should definitely that kind of stuff. Also liking a lot of Elon Musk apologia and also Elon Musk tweets. Tweets like
It's like
it's all the stuff.
off.
It's exactly what I would have predicted just based on irritating tech bros and the type of people that like Bird and I joke about during our playthroughs and stuff like that, which was just like that type of person that works at like tech companies and so on, and how they're just so frustrating because they have zero additional perspective and it's not going anywhere. It's just tweets like if you think billionaires self-funding trips to Mars is wasteful, then wait till I tell you about the government. And it's like, two things can be true, motherfucker. What the fuck? Just
Also,
Jesus
can I point
Christ.
out that scientific consensus is an actual thing, and if you don't understand that, then you don't understand.
Yeah, no,
science
that's a really obvious like. You can tell what kind of person wrote that tweet because like the people complaining about scientific consensus are the type of people that are complaining about like global warming or vaccines. That's usually when consensus gets cited. It's like, because a lot of scientific stuff is like up for debate and being worked on, and even those things have like nuances to them. But when somebody's mad about quote unquote scientific consensus, it's always like that kind of stuff. It's just
especially because consensus is what happens. Like, science doesn't actually it doesn't prove things in the way that what people think. It's the consensus that things are the way they are, and that's the closest it gets. Like, you can prove something is wrong, that's called disproving, and that is a thing because you come up with evidence to the contrary. But even then, like, sometimes we say things are disproven, but there's always ways to show that maybe a test was done wrong, or maybe you didn't account for factors, and because our understanding of science changes a lot. But consensus is the tool of science. It's scientists coming to a consensus and being like, yeah, that's probably how it works. Let's let the normies think that gravity pulls us down. They really don't know that it actually pulls us up.
He likes so many Eric Weinstein and Sam Harris tweets and stuff. So the stuff pushed me away so hard. He's like, he made one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm so sad. Scott Benson's amazing. Everybody follow Scott Benson. Night in the Woods is better than The Witness anyway.
Oh yeah, Scott Benson. Yeah.
So that anyway.
Also,
lately I've been making a lot of stressful purchasing choices.
Oh really? Do tell.
Thanks, Patreon.
Let us live vicariously through your bad purchasing choices.
So I had an adventure with I wasn't completely stupid. When I was making Annihilation, I'm like, this is a very long script, the Annihilation video essay, and it was looking like it was going to take like, it's going to be at least 40 minutes probably. The final duration ended up being 48 minutes, and I'm like, okay, when I Google like YouTube content ID, fair use clips, etc., they're like, your clips should be like probably like 7 seconds long, but no more than 10 seconds or whatever. Like there's like guidelines about like how to best handle using movie and television show clips in your episode and so on. And as far as I can tell, my video didn't get claimed. I can't tell for sure because you only know if it's blocked anywhere. If you at first on a small channel, I don't think you get to know whether or not it's been claimed on a monetization level until you actually gain monetization, which I don't have yet because I'm a small channel on my video essay channel. There's like, I have to like actually think about those rules about like, you need X amount of watch time and subscribers. I passed every milestone instantly except watch time. I need to get that. That'll take a little while to reach eventually. But you need like a X number of hundreds of hours of watch time per month, and then you get monetization. So once that happens, might suddenly find out that all my videos are like claimed by Nintendo and Warner Brothers or whoever made Annihilation. But I was like, okay, I'm not stupid. I don't necessarily know how best to do a lot of it and so on, but I figure all these people, they appear on camera for a reason. Your Jacob Gellers, your Folding Ideas, your Lindsay Ellis's, all these people, like it's like they appear on camera not just because of the parasocial, like, look, it's me, human contact and so on, but because like it's a pain to edit those extended videos entirely using clips. I mean, Folding Ideas originally is called Folding Ideas because he had a puppet. Like he has dozens of episodes where a puppet jabbers at the camera whenever film clips aren't being shown, and that's because like you just gotta fill space, and and you can see that because there's some parts of my video where I just kind of awkwardly repeat a few clips, and some parts where it's just kind of like blank because I don't have anything to show, so it's just like a scrolling background. Like
I like that scrolling background with the wiggly lines.
Yeah, it's the same one I used in this podcast, but with color corrected.
Oh,
I don't know if anyone noticed that, but it's the same squiggly line background from this podcast,
it from somewhere,
but like red.
Yeah.
I just color corrected the same thing, but that was like that's like the video's still happening. It was like my version of like the 3 arrows or Sean like skull, like having like just a fixed image that takes up the screen when nothing else is happening. But the thing is, I filmed myself recording the entire video. Like I filmed with a camera. I like set up like this will go up on Patreon at some point because I gotta like show somebody this eventually. But like I had this really badly set up like camera on a tripod where the tripod itself was not tall enough, so it's on top of a box. But there's a second tripod that has my phone. So there's a camera and a phone, and my phone has like the script scrolling on a teleprompter so I can read it. And I had like lights because I have like softbox lights that I already own, and I was trying to like do lighting and set something up like in that way. And I got a purple light on one side. I was trying to do things on short notice and and I was trying to get it all done before our Wilder Myth session was starting. So I was like, no, I'm dedicated. I have a deadline. We're doing this today. And I just sat there and like did the whole script over the course of like an hour and a half into the camera. The footage is bad. Like the camera quality is bad. Everything about the footage is bad. But also like the camera was too close to me. And I was reading the teleprompter, which is right above the camera slightly. And you can definitely see me looking above the camera the entire time. So it's just awkward that I'm not looking at it. I'm not believably looking at the camera the way it would be if it was further away. And so on. There's just like a lot of things that went wrong there that I learned from. But so I ended up not using any of the footage. But now I'm like shelling out for like a DSLR camera, and like I'm getting like I'm getting like these gel light filters I can put over the soft boxes to change the color of each light if I want to. And I'm getting like a desk that I can sit at that's like fold up so I can put it away and so on when I'm trying to like create a set for these videos. Because you know what was a real big pain in the ass was deciding not to use that footage and then being like, well, now I have to figure out what to put on the screen for 48 minutes. And like, I'm not always directly referencing a clip that second. And when you are directly referencing a clip, you still can only show it for like X number of seconds before you cut or someone or cut or something. And like there's a bunch of scenes where like when I show an extended scene, I keep cutting ahead slightly. There's a bunch of jump cuts in the scene because that's to get more, so it's not just playing continuously for 20 seconds, because that would get me in trouble, for example. The Zelda, as you might imagine, the Zelda video was a much easier edit because it's just gameplay footage, so I can be like, no, I'll just let this clip run for 30 seconds, and I got that whole video done in a day. It's way harder when if you talk about a show or a movie, and like when you're trying to pick what clips to find. Like for Annihilation, I was just hunting around for clips in like a 2-hour movie, but I had that entire 2-hour movie in my timeline, and I was like, you start getting like a sense of like where to skip to in the duration of the movie to find certain scenes that you try, because you have to like hunt for the scene for every individual clip for every 6-second thing. Like it's such a fucking editing ordeal. And like absolutely, as much as I hate appearing on camera and there's all these insecurities there'll be comments about that stuff, and also I have to like figure out how to like try to be natural and funny on camera and all this shit. And try to like make that like believable when it's like a really artificial set, obviously, and it always is for everybody you watch, and they somehow try to make it look like it's good and all that.
Not for everyone. Andrew, when he films with his chickens, it's a real set. It's not a real. It's a real life.
Yeah.
What?
But like trying to do all that, like I think he's
You
referring
have a
to
video about your chickens.
Yeah,
in your
that's
patio.
a long time ago.
Yeah, that's
ago.
like most of the vlog videos are real. I don't.
That's
have
just
like a set
that's
for
just
that.
vlogging, yeah, not
Yeah.
like doing the set stuff you do in the middle of like a video essay. But like, because
Yeah.
the difference between
Yeah,
those is
even-
they're scripted, but you're trying to make it not look scripted and so on. Because if I just ramble, then it turns into my fucking Q&As on Patreon, and those are like 2 hours long about one topic, and that is not what I'm going for. I'm going for a
Yeah, even my
structured
cooking videos
thing.
aren't scripted, but there's
Yeah.
not a lot of time to ramble. Like I have to. The only time I can do that is when something's cooking. Like when I'm waiting for something to finish, then it's like, all right, I guess I'll just talk and see
Yeah.
what happens. But
Like
yeah.
as awkward as it is trying to like be all natural on camera and shit like that, holy fuck, in the editing process, if like a third to a half of my video can be those takes, whatever best takes I have and so on, and not me fucking clip hunting and trying to figure out what to put in every second of the video, what a change it'll be. Except I just have to replace this with like potential technical troubleshooting about a DSLR camera, which I've never owned before, stuff like that. But it's gonna be a fucking
I got
process.
one for streaming, and I for streaming I need another capture card so I can connect it. But it is quite something. The quality is just immediately much better because the sensor is so much bigger.
Like
Yeah.
regular consumer
But-
cameras and phones and webcams are just so
Yeah, it's not-
frustrating to try to make anything out of, and you're like, no.
It's just a facsimile of the real thing. But once you have
Yeah.
a DSLR, it's like this is the stuff.
Putting that
Don't
much
forget
work
about
into it,
lenses.
putting that much work into Annihilation and its script and all that stuff, and then seeing that footage and being like, it's so bad. Like I just couldn't mix the two. Like it's so innately frustrating.
I can imagine.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. All that bullshit. But that's been my experience. But it's been
I mean,
it's an interesting
always,
experience.
It's always weird jumping to a different medium than what you're used to creating. And
Yeah. It's exciting. You get to just keep like chipping away at a thing that you want to work on, and it kind of like I kind of added like weekends back into my life in the way of like there's your like day job work of like here's the thing that I work on, and then here's the stuff that's like what I'm trying to get to do once I'm done with my work. And so like I have like a goal to like get to, so it's like, okay, we better get my recordings done for my like Let's Play channel and like during these days of the week, so I can try to work on my like the stuff I want to do during those days of the week. Whereas during the years of just doing Let's Plays, it's like yeah, like I mean, I'll work on it, but also like if I have to do it tomorrow, then is that too? Or like it's just kind of like an infinite loop. Like the individual weeks don't really have a rhythm to them outside of the the multiplayer collaborations that are scheduled, because otherwise it's like it doesn't really matter when I get stuff done, and it's like what else am I gonna do? It's fucking COVID. I'm not going anywhere.
But it's at the same time you say that, and it's I feel that as well. But I think at the same time, it's also easy to fall into a rhythm, even though you might delay things or bring things forward a little bit every once in a while because of the
it's a rhythm, but also like a rut.
Yeah, it's like it's weird, isn't it? It's
because like I've been doing Let's Plays for 10 years, and it's been my job for 5, and like that's just like an old consuming, it's just what you do all the time thing, and every now and then you break it up with like a podcast or whatever, and it's like it's not like I'm not like complaining. It's like for a lot of people a dream job, and like yeah, it's great. Like it's so much better than any job I've ever had, but like I'm not like I don't like have a project ever. Like record the next episode of Yakuza isn't really the same thing as having like a project where you're like think like as much as I do like to like have these like, and you do too, like have these like big ranty digressions about what you think a thing means in a game and so on, and everyone's like, don't overthink it. I'm like, no motherfucker, it's interesting that like in BioShock, the fucking Anrandian nightmare world, you can pay this one vending machine to make the cops stop at hunting you. Like that's not just a happenstance thing, that's a commentary. Like gameplay is narrative, motherfucker.
Yeah,
I was you're overthinking about it. Stop
yeah,
it.
You can pay
the machines
wait,
where
what do you wait,
the machines that stop the
drones
like
attack you when you commit a crime in BioShock, and you can pay there's like vending machines that you can pay to make the cops stop attacking you.
Holy crap! I think every time I've played, I avoided that mechanic. I don't think I remember.
It's not that
seeing
hard
that
to just shoot the drones. Yeah,
yeah. Like
drones,
I just well, I mean,
they're annoying though, if I remember correctly.
I mean, my philosophy on everything is just like, well, if it's in my way, it's going
Shoot
to
it.
die. And so, yeah. So like the bots flying at me is like, all right, I guess. Like.
Yeah, but then I'll see the terminal, which I don't think I ever used, but I noticed it, and it's like, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? And people are like, boring people are like, that doesn't mean anything. It's like, you're revealing more about yourself than the game. Like you're just refusing to engage with why things might be in a game and what it might mean. It's like things happen for a reason. That kind of person is the same kind of person that goes and plays through like This War of Mine or Frostpunk or Papers, Please, and just makes the mechanically correct choices and not like doesn't think about any of the moral implications of what they're doing. Like I get these comments on This War of Mine videos that are all like, see, the optimal strategy is actually to go into the old folks' home and just take them out with a shotgun and take all their food. I'm like, oh my fucking god, dude, you don't understand the premise of this game, which is specifically about this anti-war message. Like you're just like, oh yeah, I got this down to a science. Like, yeah, it's a pretty easy game if you're a sociopath.
Yeah, unfortunately that is the way that I play most games. I mean that's the thing though, it's a game, so at some point it's like it can be hard to properly empathize with like fictional.
Well, but it's also
things.
on the game. It's on the game to force you to empathize. Maybe I've never played This War of Mine like that, but This War of Mine probably wouldn't. I think the rewards that you get from saving every character or each character, I think they're maybe the best thing the game does to make you empathize. It trains you for new scenarios to be like, okay, let's be as nice or as good or interesting as possible. And I only played one scenario, so I don't remember exactly how other scenarios go. But it's just I understand what you're saying, Keith, about people trying not to overthink it. I have personally found that there are certain types of game where people complain about that more than others, and that's why I say it's on the game sometimes. I think games where the gameplay is more of a challenge, things like Neo Scavenger or The Sword of Mine or anything survival in general. The gameplay tends to be a challenge. That's, I think, where people just sort of engage the sociopath side of their brains to just sort of forget about the implications. And I say this because it happened to me early in my sort of gaming career, as it were. Not in a Let's Play, but when I played, I forget the name. What's that shooter? That shooter with white phosphorus and there's Breaking Point. It's not Breaking Point. I'm
Yeah, I
sorry,
don't
I forget
remember.
the name. It's this shooter that tries to be all like psychological and sort of commentary and political and stuff. And oh man, I really wish I could tell the name. I'll figure it out later. But the point is, there's this shooter where you play as a
You're
American
talking
soldier.
about
Oh, yeah, I know
the
exactly what game you're
line.
talking about. Yeah, Spec
The
Ops. You're talking about
Spec
Spec
Ops:
Ops:
The
The Line.
Line.
Spec Ops: The Line. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So midway through that game, in a replay, it was very obvious to me to see what the game was doing. But midway through the game is where the game starts to go a little bit heavier on the themes and heavier on the sort of trying to get you to perceive the world in a different way with gameplay mechanics, so that it can deliver the last part of the storyline. And I'm not going to spoil it too much because it doesn't really matter. But my I was so involved. I wasn't ready for. I didn't know what the game was for. So or what it was marketed as. So I just it's a shooter. Let's see what it's all about. And midway through the game, I start to see those mechanics, and I don't realize they are there. The game literally starts to change the reality that my character perceives, which is how the game works. And I didn't realize that's what was going on. And when there's one specific, a very, very important pivotal point with the white phosphorus situation, I literally do not understand what is happening before my eyes, because I was so engaged with just the normal playing a game and seeing the story and overcoming the challenges of either exploration or shooting or whatever, that when the white phosphorus scene happens, I'm like, what just happened? I don't understand. Was that a bug? Is the game freaking out or something? And only after seeing it, only really dawned on me what exactly happened after seeing the ending of the game. And I was like, oh, I get what the game was going for. Because for easily like 10 hours, or maybe not 10 hours, I don't know how long the game is, but for half the game, I was convinced that the game basically had a brain fart and had basically been confused and didn't. I was convinced that the game was like, the game isn't telling this story is not correct. What's going on? And then only after I realized what the game was going for, did I actually sort of give it the benefit of the doubt. Which in this case, it wasn't the benefit of the doubt. It was actually understanding what the game was trying to say. So what I'm saying is, if you have a game that is a game like Disco Elysium is never going to fool anybody, and I don't think anybody's ever going to complain if you overthink Disco Elysium. I mean, they might complain, but they're not going to be like, you shouldn't overthink this game. No. Overthink it to the extreme, because that's what the game is there for. Because the mechanics and there's nothing to optimize, right, in terms of the gameplay. So I think what I'm trying to say here is that some games are easier for people to be like, don't overthink it. And BioShock is a good example of that, because it's a shooter. So
it's so absurd though, because it's like
it is frustrating.
The villain's
yeah,
name is an anagram of Ayn Rand. Like, the game is really not subtle about having a point.
Absolutely. I'm not. I'm
The
not saying you're
sequel's
wrong.
really bad at having a point, but it's even less subtle about it.
BioShock 2?
Infinite.
Oh, Infinite. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the problem with Infinite was that it didn't make a point, because it had he tried to say many things at the same time, and I don't understand. I never went back and replayed it.
Yeah. From what I can remember, it has like this kind of distressing thing where it starts off of being like, here's racism. Oh, don't you want to stop the racism? But then it turns around and it's like both sidesing the racism in a weird way. Because it's like, now the bad people are in, now it's the marginalized people are in power, and they're just as evil. Isn't that wacky? And I'm like, what are you going for here, buddy?
Yeah. That is my experience, or what I remember as well.
Are we getting a little Jonathan Blow over here?
I thought it's still BioShock Infinite still has one of the scenes that has stood with me from BioShock in general the most, which is that scene where there's an auction for people doing a job. There's a job auction, basically. And people aren't saying they're going to do things for cheaper. They're saying they're going to do things faster. And the consequences are that they do them unsafely and all that. And the subtext isn't really very complicated to understand, but it was and it's relatively early in the game as well. So I think just because of that, it's a little bit more memorable because it's fresher. It's like your senses are still ooh, what is this? The new game and all that.
Oh, yeah, the game
but that scene
starts
in
off as like
particular,
a lightly interactive museum.
yeah. But that scene in particular stood with me for a long time. Throughout my, it's been a long while since BioShock Infinite came out, but throughout my my growing of my understanding of worker employee or worker employer relationships, that scene I every once in a while I think back to it because it's a good nutshell of the extreme of the power imbalance between the person who has the means of production and the people who need to work to survive.
Yeah.
And that's what the game is saying. Like when you play the game and you get to that point, that's what the game is criticizing. Is look at these people who are being so exploited that they're literally fighting each other to do this job that is incredibly difficult in such a short amount of time because they need to work to survive. But then later on, it just disperses itself completely. But I think it's still, I don't know. My reaction to BioShock Infinite wasn't as averse as probably it should be if I understood things a little bit better, honestly.
I need to go
At the
back
time.
again at this point. It's been like a decade.
I think it's 2012, yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes out.
It's very old.
It's very old.
It's very old, 2012.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just getting caught off guard by like I noticed that this is weird, but I noticed that on my Patreon they nominated Ico as a game to play next. It's on like the list.
That is very old.
And no, well, here's the thing. So like Ico and Shadow of the Colossus got an HD collection, right? And then after that, Shadow of the Colossus got an HD remake, actual remake, which is somewhat controversial in the same ways that the Demon Souls one is, and it's made by the same people. But like that so Ico came out. So the current year, 2021. Ico came out 2001, 20 years ago. The HD remake came out in 2011. It is now as old as the game was when it was made. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck. I've had it and I've owned it like almost that entire time and haven't played it. I just had the
Gaming
disc
technology
lying
hasn't
there.
advanced as much since 2011.
I was looking back to
So
that.
the
I'm like, wow,
difference
if that
is
wins, I need to go
starker.
like pick out my PS3 again. 2 console generations ago. And I would be playing 2 Blue Point remakes at the same time that are 2 console generations apart.
Yeah.
Because the non-intrusive remakes were also done by Blue Point. And then they came back and did the Shadow of the Colossus like different remake. They're busy people.
I think the thing I find the most weird looking back, at just restricting our conversation to games. We don't need to talk about life in general, but looking back at games that I've played over the years, the thing that I find the most weird is that I don't quite recall the point in time I was at when I played them. Like, for example, playing Fallout the first time, or playing Neverwinter Nights 2 the first time, or playing BioShock, whatever. I don't remember my mindset, and because of that, I don't remember who I was, in a way, back then. I remember the games, and I remember my feelings that I got out of the games, in a way, or maybe... I mean, depends on how long it's been.
I remember
But it's
how I
like-
played fucking New Vegas. I played it like a Diablo fan. So I would just like click it, kill it, do all the things, task. Like I was literally multitasking, listening to podcasts or like YouTube videos or whatever, not really paying attention to the game and just like completing it like a checklist. And I remember nothing from it. It might as well be a blind playthrough when I get to it finally. I wasted New Vegas.
Yeah. It's fine. You're going to get to see it for the first time. In a way. But I'm not... That's not my problem, though. I didn't like... What I mean to say is that my gaming experience doesn't necessarily get bigger because I've been gaming for 20 years or 25. It's just because I don't remember. I really truly do not recall who I was, and just I don't have ideas from more than 10 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. It's sort of stretching it. And I remember that 10 years ago, I remembered things from 10 years before that. Maybe I didn't remember it from the very early memories of my life. Certainly didn't, because I was like 10, my life of playing video games. But I wonder if like in 10 years, I'll be looking back and I'll be, oh yeah, I remember the last 10 years of video games. It's not before. I mean, I remember the games, just not what I thought about them. Do you know what I mean? Do you have that, have you reached that point in your life that you're like, you don't feel, what I'm trying to say is that I don't feel the weight of my age, but that's not necessarily a good thing.
I mean, the 10 years ago, me just didn't think about stuff all that much, I don't think. Like, just as far as like art goes, like I was the kind of person that I'm often frustrated with, essentially. Like, yeah, because that was what was so addictive, is that like there was like a specific arc of like, first I'm watching Nostalgia Critic videos in college, and then I find Red Letter Media and the Plinker reviews, and I'm like, oh, this is like a whole deeper, more interesting, critical way of looking at stuff that's more meaningful than the weird, shrill, irritating Nostalgia Critic stuff that's like surface level whining and not like never really much artistic interpretation, but also not really any understanding of like craft and continuity and like meaning and stuff. And like in a way, Red Letter Media like kind of unfortunately encourages a certain kind of exhausting YouTuber that just sits there and like pauses the movie frame by frame and nitpicks every second of it in then like a really stupid like Cinema Sins but for 2 hours kind of way, which is like not like, they're usually smarter than that, but the people that are inspired by them are more frustrating in many cases. But then video essays just are taking off, and you just getting like, it's so addictive to get these perspectives from like Errant Signal and so on, like a channel that I've been subscribed to for like 7 or 8 years at this point, I think. And you get these interesting questions. Like I don't remember if it was Errant Signal or Kyle Calgren, but somebody made a video that was like, who gets to be a civilization? And it was just this I think that's the title of the video or something, and it's like the idea of just like, let's look at the implications of civilization as a game, and just look at like what's the list of like people who are a quote unquote civilization in each civilization game, and who's a nation state, or like one of the, those independent nation state NPC towns basically, which are also representative of real life historical places, and which civilizations are actually just like, in some cases there's 2 separate civilizations that are actually the same like people, like in different eras, they like one of them became the other one, and like there's interesting questions to be asked about like in sequels, like which things that were nation states in a previous game become a civilization in the next game. And then and even when games are aggressively trying to be some kind of weird form of apolitical, like Errant Signal made a really good video about Far Cry 5, and Jacob Geller made a really good video about Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the reboot, and like what these kinds of games end up saying when they're trying not to say anything, and like the kind of like things that they passively endorse, and how like even stuff that's supposedly not about anything ends up still saying a whole lot about the people that make it and their default assumptions about society and a bunch of other stuff like that. And so
that
like,
reminds me,
like I'm just so much further down the rabbit hole. Like now I'm like super engaged, but back in the day I would listen to Avenged Sevenfold's critical acclaim, where he goes on these big rants about stuff, and like for me it was like System of a Down, Rage Against the Machine, Avenged Sevenfold. It's all the same thing, just shouty, angry music that cathartically makes me feel good as a teenager that has emotions because of hormones and stuff like that, and nobody understands me and all that other shit that you're dealing with as a kid. And like I like it's just hilarious to look at back at now, like that vague, aimless, just I want emotional catharsis but no actual meaning, or I'm not going to engage with the meaning of anything, because those things are like polar opposites to each other. Like going back and seeing that like, oh, Rage Against the Machine's Killing in the Name of is about like the white supremacist history of the police, whereas critical acclaim by Avenged Sevenfold is about sucking George Bush's balls, just gargling them, and the Iraq War is good actually, and don't you dare don't you dare criticize the Iraq war because that's anti-patriotic, and like it's a really embarrassing, stupid song by idiots. That doesn't even rhyme.
Sounds like it.
It's just
He doesn't even rhyme.
He's just
That's like the ultimate crime.
There's a whole part, the whole part that used to be my favorite as a teenager, where he just starts shouting about stuff. It's just a dude going on a shitty rant, and it's badly informed, and it's on the wrong side of history, and he's just a weird dumb idiot that is just like shitting on people for criticizing the war, and it's like it's literally the opposite of what like music should generally be. Like this is like the whole point of so much of the stuff is usually to be counterculture and to be questioning things and being like so much of the music industry is usually more progressive and going further than the shitty culture they're responding to, and that's usually why the music exists in the first place. But no, it's like, no, the war is good actually, you dumb bastard. It's like, this is embarrassing to go back to. So whenever I'm aware of the old me, it's depressing. Is the point I'm making. It sucks. Be happy you don't remember how shitty you were.
No, I remember. I remember. I
have video
never
proof,
really listened.
So
oh yeah,
joke's on you.
I never really listened too much to Avenged Sevenfold in particular, but I remember. I mean, we all have. It's a good thing. It's growth, you know, because it's not just growth because we get better as people, but growth because we learn how we get to be like that and how we change from being like that, to the point where back when I had a bigger band than what I have right now, I had our other guitar player. He is 10 years younger than I am, and he was 16 when he joined the band, and then so I was 26, and basically I got to see him grow from between 16 to 21. And I got to see, you know, all the teenage stuff that every teenager goes through, and in terms of how sure you are about your opinions, or about how oblivious you can be to nuance, and it's and like what personal space means in terms of opinions, and just like, because every person is different, obviously, but like it's very powerful to feel young and to feel sure about who you are, but the real power comes from you taking no shit, and just being like, no, I think like this, and if you don't like that, then fuck you. And that's where rock comes from, that's where metal comes from, and that sort of, that's what you're referring to in when, you know, going against the machine in a way, or going against the man, and just, you know, speaking up for yourself, no matter if you're right or wrong, or in the end you think you're right, but it doesn't matter. It's about speaking up. And I see that as well. Like the problem, like think of like Megadeth. I like a lot of their songs.
Hello,
actually.
me, it's me again.
Megadeth is the band that has an amazing song called Peace Cells. Which is
who's buying?
Actually, it's kind of insightful. I mean, it's sort of all over the place a little, but it's about how war is not profitable. But then they have Holy Wars in like I think it's 3 or 4 albums after that, which is about the war in Iraq, and just it's basically it's basically Islamophobic propaganda against or in favor of the American war. And so it's like, you see that as well in the artists themselves, like, because they come from a place where they criticize the war machine, and then a few years later,
you can watch like the trajectory of their like radicalization in one direction or the other. God, I remember Peace Cells. Yeah, it has all that silly like talking that Megadeth does sometimes, like in the song I was referencing a second ago.
He's like, what do you mean I don't believe in God? I talk to him every day.
It's such a silly band.
Yeah. Mustaine is he's just But my point is that it's sort of common to everybody, and it's a journey that a lot of people go through. It's very easy for us to be sure of ourselves when we're kids, and then embarrassed about it. But I think it's good to be embarrassed than just to be like, because I think there's two types of old people basically. It's the people who say I was I was shitty when I was younger, and the people who say I didn't know anything when I was younger, because they just go one way or the other. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I don't know if it resonates with everybody.
Can you repeat that part? Was it?
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's there's two. In my experience, there's two types of older people, which is the ones that say that basically regret stuff they did when they were younger, and they just sort of understand you as a kid or as a younger person when you do those same old shitty things. And then there's the other thing that resent who they were when they were younger, because they just grow bitter or they grow disillusioned or whatever, and just say, you're gonna grow out of that phase, and you're just gonna be a cog in the machine like everybody else. They don't say it in those terms, but Mustaine is definitely the kind of person that grew to be resentful of who he was, most likely from when he was young. And you, in what you're saying, in just being like, I was shitty when I listened to Avenged Sevenfold, or it's not using that. I'm using that just as an example, obviously, but you are going the other way. You're saying you're not resentful of who you were. You have grown, and I think that's it's sort of bittersweet, but it's sweet as well. It's good. It's a good thing. That's what I'm saying.
It's so fun. It's really fascinating to go back to stuff you consumed as a kid and was like important to you, and you watched it over and over again, but you just didn't have insight or context. You just had the surface level read of stuff. Like, I didn't fucking know who Ayn Rand was when I was 17, the year that BioShock came out. So I was like, oh, it's a game about like some kind of guy that wanted to get all the super geniuses together, but it was hubris and it all fell apart. Oh, it's sad. And then you play it 10 years later and you're like, oh, this idea was always bad. This was a bad idea for a bad man. This whole place is awful. But like as a kid, you're like, oh wow, they tried to make utopia via all these good ideas, because you just take his message at face value, basically.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, you don't think about the fact that the opening scene of Men in Black is them stopping a bunch of Mexicans at the border, and all the Mexicans are secretly aliens from space. And you don't get the analog there aliens? Because you're 8.
Oh, I've never seen Men in Black.
And you watch it when you're older, and you're like, well, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. Borrowed observation from Kyle Calgren's 4-hour-long fucking Starship Troopers video essays series. Fuck.
Oh my God,
guess I'm never talking about that movie. It's been done in every possible facet, I assume, at this point. Jesus Christ, it's comprehensive. If I ever talk about that movie, it'll just be from the lens of how it made me not trust the military as a kid, which was good timing because it happened right before 9/11. It made my entire country really creepy when I was 10 or 11.
It made the entire world, but I imagine your country in particular.
Yeah, but I mean, like, post 9/11, there was extreme American patriotism and jingoism, and it was a lot. And having just watched Starship Troopers
is coming up,
like
by the way.
A bunch of times.
What? 9/11 is coming up, by the way. Weird
time just flies.
It's been 20 years. We're over it. Everyone's over it.
No, I tweeted. People are a little too over it sometimes. I tweeted during. Well, I went somewhere a few weekends ago, and while I was there, I tweeted a screenshot that I took, which is that the I found it. This place was having an event on 9/11. It's like, wow, it's our 10-year anniversary. And I'm like, okay, maybe don't celebrate something on 9/11 that isn't like the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. Maybe don't celebrate something else that day. Like we saw like posters like about the event that we're having. I'm like, no. But yeah, watching how creepy the country got, I definitely had a perspective change as a kid that I might have not had otherwise if I hadn't been watching and rewatching and rewatching and rewatching Starship Troopers. Because I saw it in theaters, and we got a lot of side-eye glances. Like people were visibly angry at my dad for taking us to that movie because it has like co-ed nude shower scenes and stuff like that, and I was like 9 or something. But I literally didn't even remember that about the movie as a kid. Like that meant nothing to me. It was all about the the bugs getting shot and shit like that. But like watching that movie a lot as a kid because we had it on VHS, and then 9/11 happening, and then watching the weird way that everyone like converged and everything, that definitely changed me as a person. Like, because you could so easily just get swept up and be like, yeah, the Dixie Chicks are bad for criticizing Bush and stuff like that. And I was like, I hated Bush the whole time. I got like an early start on that. I didn't have to like become an adult to realize that there was bad things about all this, or I didn't have to wait until Katrina happened in like 2005 or something. Like
I think it was 2004.
2008.
2004.
What?
Like mid
yeah,
teenage
right?
years as opposed to being a kid.
Wasn't that in like 2008?
No,
Yeah, it might have been.
Oh, 2005. You're right. It is 2005.
2005, yeah.
Was I right from the yeah?
No, it was
I was
formed,
right from the get go.
No,
I can't remember these things, man.
Hurricane Katrina formed in March 2004. How does-
Yeah, but it didn't like. I don't know. I guess
I see.
it didn't
So
count
maybe that's
as
why.
being the.
It says August 2005.
Yeah.
Oh no
it
no
says
no!
August
It's
2005.
fatalities in damage. It says you on the wiki page of Hurricane Katrina. It says 2004 USD. It has to be 2004, right?
Uh-uh.
March.
It
I don't
says
know.
Hurricane Katrina formed as a tropical depression over the southern Bahamas on August 25th, 2005.
Oh
2004
Then
USD is United States dollars.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you.
Impact.
That's the impact. Yeah. It costs a lot of money. Sort
Yeah,
of.
the only mention of 2004 really on the page is all damage figures in this table are a nominal value 2004 USD. Yeah, that's not a year.
Yeah, it's based on like telling you what the value of the money was in that time. Yeah,
oh,
no,
I'm
this
looking
happened.
at it wrong. I was looking at Katarina, not Katrina. Sorry. That's
Oh.
yeah. I was
Wait.
literally looking at the wrong hurricane. Yeah.
That's wait.
Sorry. What do you mean? Wait.
Hurricane Katarina?
Katarina, yeah.
Why would they have almost the same name on their table twice? That's not how
There
that
are
works, is
only
it?
so many names you can name
Yeah.
a hurricane.
Don't they just loop
bet-
the? Don't they just loop? Don't they start
They
the list
might.
over every year or something?
No, not every.
Why would there
year.
be a Hurricane Katarina? What?
Yeah, look it up on Wikipedia.
I don't understand how you Googled it. Oh, with a C. Hurricane Katarina. There is a
Oh, yeah,
Hurricane
yeah, it was-
Katarina in 2004. I don't think
Yeah,
anyone.
that's why I was
don't
confused.
think people remember this one.
No, because it
I don't
didn't.
think people
It
remember
did some
this
damages, but
one.
not too much.
Or maybe the country that it hit remembers it.
Yeah, it was Santa Catarina, and
Yeah, it's South.
it was in Brazil actually.
Yeah, it's a very different area.
Mhm.
Probably why I don't remember it.
Knowing how
Yeah.
the news works, it was probably literally more devastating than Katrina, but no one cares because
No, it was.
it didn't
it
affect
only-
enough white people.
It killed people, but it was only 11. It's
I love the idea
but
that it's just sitting there comparing. It's
sorry to
like-
distract from the point of
I
growing
don't
up
remember
around
what the
people
point
who.
is. This is I'm a mess.
You
This
were saying that
episode.
you hated Bush from the beginning. It's I think that is such a that I think that's the biggest disconnect with even modern day Americans and the rest of the world. Maybe not British. I don't know. Probably
It was
some British
fucking
as well.
creepy. Like people get weirded out by the fact that we do like a little fascist like pledge to the flag creepy thing in our classes every single day in school, and that's like a
That is
lot
really
to take
bad.
in if you're not used to
That
that.
is really bad.
And it's a lot to like realize that's
Is
not
it,
normal
though?
from the inside.
is.
Like realizing that's not normal is a whole thing. But like
Yeah.
you don't understand. But what you don't also understand is like how enforced it was and how like people would get mad at you for not being patriotic enough. And it's like still a thing, but it was like especially a thing in the 2000s where we were like everybody like the Iraq War was like so popular at the beginning, and people were so like all united in this thing. And it was just so much to take in because people were like, yeah, like you would get a lot of signals as a kid. Like there was there was a lot of like, you're doing something wrong if you aren't at lockstep with the country and all that. And that's exactly how you get super indoctrinated as a kid. And it's funny because those people will then be like, oh, these colleges are indoctrinating people. And it's like, in college, we just like meet more people and gain more perspectives. The teachers don't like tell us to go left or even teach us things that are more left. Like, that's not how... I don't understand how they think colleges work, which I guess makes sense because there's a lot of like first generation college. Like I wasn't a first generation college student, but I was a first generation college grad. Like I neither of my parents finished college; they just started it. But I'm like, you get this bizarre, fantastical idea that college just like radicalizes people, like. As in, like, that's the point of it and what its goal is, and there's like mechanisms in place to make sure they do that in like a the wall kind of way.
It's
I don't know how we got there. I guess it's just because people need to have an easy narrative of how to explain why their children don't agree with them anymore, and so they take the easy answer the media gives them and then don't introspect at all.
I think if we bypass the limitations of going to college to get a solid and unbiased grasp on reality, which, you know, if we pretend that, what I mean to say is if we pretend that going to college gives you an unbiased, so not radicalized, but an unbiased grasp on reality, which is not necessarily the case, but if we pretend that that's the case, and if we're aware that just life in general, and certainly public education in the US, radicalizes people, which it does, and that's what you're talking about. You just need to talk about it in those terms. If you acknowledge that living day to day in the U.S. radicalizes people, then yeah, there's definitely a de-radicalization process in college because it's unbiased. And so for somebody who thinks that being radical to the other side is being unbiased, then yeah, the colleges will radicalize you. But it's just that it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it? If you say that the market is great, and if something is wrong is because of bureaucrats in the government, or no, actually wars are good, then and you think that you're not radicalized when you say stuff like that, then yeah, anybody that says anything closer to just normal common sense in the rest of the world, and when I say common sense, I mean centrism, then that's all radical. That's how it comes to things like the U.S. not having Medicare for all and just normal basic stuff that saves money to everybody and just makes everybody else, or not everybody else, but everybody be better off. It's just basic stuff, and people not. That's how you get there, is by everybody being just completely immersed in this sort of common think, I suppose, because it's got to be like it. It has to be traumatizing in a way, not traumatizing as in making somebody suffer, but in the sense that it shapes your perception of reality. And if you wake up to it early enough, you can absolutely be aware of it and just sort of try to dodge the other way. But even specifically regarding the Pledge of Allegiance, I remember talking on Discord, I think specifically with Andrew, maybe other people, and Andrew has said before that it isn't that weird, and I can understand. I can sympathize. Maybe understand.
It's not that weird in that you get completely programmed to be like, this is normal, and then you don't question it ever.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I can sympathize with the feeling that it's not weird. That yeah, sure, I don't even pay attention, or I'm lucky enough to be able to not do it, or whatever. Maybe my church, my church, maybe my school doesn't enforce that or whatever. But it isn't so much the. It isn't so much the result of the Pledge of Allegiance being a thing in the United States, is because, or when I say the result is, I mean the individual result of every person. It's the normalization in society. It just sets up a society where it's okay to have that sort of blind, jingoistic love for your country, and that's how That's how certain politicians will certainly more populist politicians all across the globe, not just in the U.S., but that's how populist politicians co-opt that sort of love for the country and just say that if you're against me, you're against the country. And you see that a lot in populist politicians, where whenever somebody criticizes them, they say you're criticizing the country.
That's why wars are so good for re-election.
Yeah. Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
You can conflate yourself with being the country and recolor any criticisms against the shit you're up to as being like anti-American and so on. And it's very useful. I was policed by other students based on how well I performed the Pledge of Allegiance on the anniversary of 9/11. Like, I wasn't like into it enough, and people were mad at me in my own classroom of 12-year-olds.
Yeah,
like that's how deep the fucking process goes.
And I think it's funny, well, like, especially, and again, like the important reference here too is that I don't know what grade were you in when 9/11 happened? You were like 6?
I was 11. Oh, you sixth grade.
What grade were you in?
It might have been 6th grade.
Okay, I was gonna say like
6.
Because I went to, when 9/11 happened, I was going to the
no. It's probably 7th grade, because I think I was.
Were you in Golden West?
Yeah, our school was next to a military base, so we were. It was even further in that direction.
It was very.
So we were in an extra indoctrinated environment. But specifically,
I will say,
my parents were so catastrophically afraid that they pulled us out of school because they thought that they would bomb the air base. And so they were like keeping us out of school. Like, they were gonna, like, I guess, nuke the air base. Like, that's the level of fear they had. Was another, and like, it's fine. Like, take your kids out of school on 9/11 for any reason, really. That's a big that day. You don't know what's gonna go down. That's a scary day. But that was
about me. They're like, nope, you still go to school. The planes didn't hit your fucking high school, your middle school. Like,
I did not go to school on 9/11.
I did. Yeah.
If you were on the East Coast, you were in school during 9/11, and it like unfolded. Like, turn on the
TV. Sunday.
That's the worst kind of snow day. I don't think it was when it's an ashy snow day.
Was it a Monday?
I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was a school day.
I think it was a weekday, but I don't know what.
Yeah.
I remember. I didn't have school because school doesn't start here until later in the month. That's why I was at my.
Here.
Yeah, we were at school, and it's like, it's a crisis day, and it's weird. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's scary. So take your kids out of school. But like, just to talk about the magnitude of it, like, they thought that it was the operation on the scale, like they were going to attack like
Tuesday.
Every military base, like even ones all the way in California that are like irrelevant as fuck, and potentially on a scale that it would somehow affect the surrounding like the school that's not even on the base but near the base. Like, so they'd have to like nuke the Air Force base, which was just not the scale we were talking about at that point. But like that, there was kind of like this like overstatement of threat, which has kind of been part of how the power grab has kind of always worked. Is like a lot of changes to society have been justified based on this like massive enigmatic fear of the Muslim threat, and like that's been like the point a lot of the time. So like there are like real threats, although they were also like ones kind of created by the CIA. So great, good job everybody. We made our own problems and now we're fighting them, but also like we actively make the problems worse, but we also in the process constantly overstate the level of the threat because there's more political cachet and more power to be gained and more support for the military to be gained from overstating the threat itself. And it's just like a lot, and that was just leveraged repeatedly and endlessly for forever. I was gonna say for a decade, but it never actually really stopped. Like it's so useful to the American government that this be a problem forever.
It's absolutely, because it's the military industrial complex. Really,
it's been I was gonna say my entire adult life. It's been almost my entire life. It's been this.
I've always
exact thing.
I guess I was fortunate in that I grew up in a house that wasn't particularly political. Like my mom was very apathetic to politics. Her thing was like, look, as long as I can keep working, I really don't give a shit what's going on outside. So inversely, whenever things like 9/11 happened, her response was, didn't happen here. I guess we're just gonna keep going on. Like it didn't matter
I feel
to
a
her
little
that
bit too much extreme apathy.
but like, yeah, but like to her, it's just like, look, I can't stop a plane from crashing into a building. That's the fucking government's job. And if they can't stop a plane from crashing into a building, what the fuck do I do? I'm going to work. And if they're gonna take care of it, they will. If they don't, all right, I'm dead, I guess. And like, to some degree, that's fine. That's a reasonable level of apathy to have to an event that you have no control over. Like,
if only everybody acted like that, because the problem is that the other side is like, oh no, we're all gonna kick Iraq's ass, or what was that song about?
There's a hundred of them. I don't know.
There's a lot.
There's so many. Sure trust me.
There was a lot of pro-military country music.
It was a ridiculous renaissance of shitty patriotism in the United States post 9/11. But it like watching it from a side where nobody in your family has any strong feelings about it is really hilarious, because you see all these people like basically devastated by this assault on your country, and you're just like, just rebuild the fucking thing. I don't give a shit. It's a tower, right? Just build it again. What is the big deal? And everyone else is like, but the lives lost. It's like, yeah, but isn't that how many people die every time we do the war? Like the war,
but the lives
in Iraq,
lost, and then
the war in Iraq cost us more lives than 9/11 did. Like, is that okay? Like, yeah, like you can do the same thing for now.
This song really encapsulates the fucking. It's the "Have You Forgotten." They took all the footage off my TV, said it's too disturbing for you and me. It'll just breed anger. That's what the experts say. If it was up to me, I'd show it every day. Some say this country is just looking for a fight. After 9/11, man, I'd say that that's right. It's like, oh, yep, he just wants to just use it. He's literally like he's like just being the politicians there, like just using 9/11 as a warmongering excuse forever. Like it's just in the words.
I don't know. It's just like
it's about our freedom. They're against Russia. No, Al-Qaeda's gonna stop our freedom. How? How?
Something I was thinking of is
literally how.
It goes like this: justice will be served, then the battle will rage. This big dog will fight when you rattle his cage, and he'll be sorry that you messed with the U.S. of A. Because we'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way.
These lyrics are a lot to take in.
9/11 was just like a really, really convenient excuse for overly patriotic and somewhat terroristic people to like use
what do you
that.
Mean somewhat? Absolutely terroristic.
Well, they're only somewhat terroristic because they're not going out and like murdering people who aren't patriotic. But they're like on that fence where they're sitting there like, if you don't believe in my country as much as I do, maybe you don't deserve to be an American.
That's what I mean.
And it's like, okay, well, you can say that, but like, isn't this like a country of freedom? I could just hate this fucking country. That's like my right to do.
That's supposed to be part
of the Constitution, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like also, but regardless of that fact, the point is like this became this huge, beautiful, like almost hyper patriotic people wanted 9/11 in a way that is almost anti-American, because it makes this beautiful rhetoric of you have to love your country because otherwise you are against it, or you're a terrorist to the nation. And
let's also not forget the white supremacist aspect of the whole thing, because it's not just about
every fight. Like it could rain tomorrow and it's white supremacist
yeah, it is
day.
everything.
Like this fucking country doesn't give a shit. Like goddamn, it doesn't have to. Like it literally every fucking event, a tornado happens and it's like time for the KKK to do something. It's like,
that's what happened
I
in
guess
Katrina.
everything is perfect for white supremacists. It doesn't matter rain, shine, hellfire, cataclysmic climate change.
There's always
all
the
of
loop
it.
of like, an outside non-white threat. Better time to capitalize on this. It's always the ones that they lean like extra heavy on. Because you have Al Qaeda, you have World War II with the Japanese, where then you locked up all the Japanese Americans and treated them like shit and didn't really do much about that, and then basically pretended you didn't afterwards, and actually it was necessary, and so on and so forth. It's like the fucking bomb wasn't even necessary. You just wanted to blow people up. And then of course like the fucking it's like the Republicans
Japan, the
love
biggest
to
threat.
constantly use anti-Chinese sentiments during the COVID pandemic, and then be like, wow, hate crimes went up, how could that happen? Like it's a cycle. It's a repeatable, obvious cycle. It's just observable. And also, just as a pause, hey, idiot, I see you in the comments. You're always there. You're like, I'm gonna willfully misinterpret them about the thing. We're not fucking like pro-terrorism. Like, it's like, I don't know how. I always have to spell this shit out.
Wait, there's somebody saying pro-terrorism?
Well, someone's gonna assume that
we're doing the
like
thing
not,
you weren't allowed to do in the 2000s, and some of these people literally never grew up since 2001, so they still think that you're like criticizing the U.S. during how 9/11 was handled and the Iraq War and so on. They're still like, so you're pro getting blown up. But it's like, no, we're laughing at the idea of Al Qaeda being a threat because it's literally framed like it's Red Dawn, like they're going to literally come in and take over America. That's what you're saying when they're fighting for our freedoms. It's this idea that Al Qaeda is so powerful they will defeat the military that literally has more military than all of the other militaries combined. Like, that's not. This was always a farce.
Man.
They were never a threat to your freedoms. That was never possible. Everyone knew that.
I think Al Qaeda was pretty strong. I think he was stronger than the United States could ever hope to be. The man avoided capture for like a decade. We even got the wrong guy. We thought Saddam Hussein was Al Qaeda, and we killed him instead. Like, we really fucked up. We couldn't stop this guy. He was literally better than the American military.
How'd this happen? Whoops!
Right? We just showed up at in Iraq. We were like, wait, how come you guys spelled Afghanistan wrong? Why is it in like all the paperwork?
The propaganda
you spell it wrong?
machine was in such full effect back then. They could literally go to the wrong country and no one cared.
And absolutely. And that's what they did. They were
the same kind of brown people, so it's like it's probably right. Someone probably knows what they're doing. It's like
it's just hilarious.
It's literally what happened, though. You're saying
like,
that
we gotta take
happened.
out this military. Yeah, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. They're like, we gotta deal with this terrorist organization based in this country. It's like, we're gonna have to overthrow this other country's leader, and it's like, so we're just not even using the CIA now. I get it. We're just doing it in the open. And then a bunch of other countries were like, come on, America, you can't do that. We got sanctions or something. Or we're all supposed to agree that this is bad. And they're like, sure, I'll just be a minute. I'll be out in just a minute for 20 years.
It's always been so obvious that it's about the money that Saudi Arabia still continues to be a strong ally of the United States, despite them being actually, in terms of percentage, the country that was most involved with the 9/11 attacks, in terms of where the attackers came from, where they were trained and all that. In percentage, I think it's like 70% of them have come from there.
Yeah. I mean, the military is never about America. That's not what it's there for. It's not.
No, it's for money.
It's not for us. It's for whatever is necessary for the government, whatever they want. It's never like to protect. You don't need the military to protect.
Missiles.
We're like a multi-nuclear nation. What are they going to do to us?
Make more missiles, make more tanks, make more airplanes. That's what they want.
I mean,
what
I don't
they do
know.
is they get you emotionally
on
invested because they get a bunch of normal people wrapped up in this, and like they're just people, and they're being tricked into being involved in a thing that is not virtuous and is not helping them and is not protecting their families, but they tell them that it will, and then some of those people die, and it's horrible. And then it becomes this really emotional thing of you have to support the troops because like my kid died in this thing and that's sad and so on. And that's true. Like that all sucks. And but the matter like but then people like turn into this thing like and then all the hippies spat on people when they came back from Vietnam, a thing that's never been confirmed and has always basically just been a lie, but that itself was propaganda by the people that wanted you to not protest the Vietnam War. And it's like they use your dead children as a shield against criticism of their unethical wars, which is just all of them. Just all of them. They're all bad. They're all bad wars happening for bad reasons, and fucking System of a Down has it right.
And even what you were saying sounds like the lyrics of some heavy metal or rock song.
Why don't presidents fight in wars? So why do they always send the poor?
It's just such a common. it's kind of tying back to how the conversation started, but it is
like a whole
baffling that
archetypical
people
song type, but and they're evergreen songs because the fucking the
it's always
decade
there.
doesn't change what's happening.
I mean, we are dealing more with climate change.
Politicians hide themselves away. They only started their own war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that role to the poor. 1970, 50-year-old song, War Pigs. It's so old now. It'll be still be relevant when I'm dead. The lyrics won't have to change. It's nothing about the entire song is tied to a particular decade. They'll play it for the rest of human society.
Well, I mean, so there was obviously the failure here, which is that like the Vietnam War was a terrible design decision from every angle. Like it didn't look good for PR. It didn't look good for like patriotism. Everything about it was so bad that like they spent like decades trying to figure out how to make the perfect war. And 9/11 was it. It was like the best possible outcome. You gas people with an action that they were not expecting to happen ever, and then you use that emotional vulnerability to create like like patriotism, where you have to be like scared to not be patriotic because otherwise it might happen again in your city. And like it's great. It's like it's really genius. It's perfect and beautiful, and it's the most un-American thing possible. But it's like
it's one of the actually interesting things about 1984 when you actually read it, unlike people do, and actually know what happens. In 1984, the Big Brother government is always at war with someone at all times. And the moment they're not at war with that person, and they're actually allies now, and they're at war with the other people now, they rewrite all of their history books and all references to that war in all of media, so they were always at war with the new people, and that was always the case. And everyone immediately just forgets like the changing wars and convinces themselves it's all for a purpose and so on. And also it's meant to unite people against this outside force, which is just this ever-present necessary thing that always has to be there. And it doesn't really matter who it is, you just have to be at war with something so that you will unite against the other thing.
Dr. Manhattan. It's very difficult.
It's great. It's respectable. It's like envious. Like it's impressive. It's truly impressive, and nothing. Everything about it is amazing, except for the fact that it works. Like that's the part that's not great, is that it is working, and I have to be surrounded by it. But otherwise, it's fantastic. Like, could you imagine? Like, you know, obviously, like we just said, 1984 has it in it. But it's such a good literary device. Like you would imagine hearing that in some kind of weird dystopian novel, and like seeing it played out, and it plays exactly like it would be written in a dystopian novel is great. Like you're just like, oh my God, this is awesome.
It isn't necessarily a very old or a new thing. It's just basically what the Catholic Church did all throughout the second millennium. It's the whole crusade thing, and just being like, it's the birth of my own country, or being the Reconquista thing, where the whole premise was that we were going to reconquer the lands to the south that were conquered 500 years in the past. It's equivalent of France invading Portugal because they had some dudes living here 500 years ago. It's like, what? 500 years? That's not reconquest. That's not even the same families, let alone the same people. and it's just. It's the same, you know. It's down to always being at war with somebody and having been at war with them for a long time. It's the self-policing that's very, very important, and just obviously being part of that, making that a religion is the best kind of self-policing, because it's part of the, you know, if you're not a true believer, then you're going to hell. And of course, the Catholic Church even had to use the Inquisition style things and all that, so it didn't even work too well for them. But it's not a new thing what the US does. It just does it is sort of in such a drastic and worldwide way that it fools everybody else. Or it doesn't necessarily fool everybody else, but there's a lot of people outside of the US that are fooled by it, because
the Catholic Church has such a insidious history of just penetrating every element of society and actually basically doing the Big Brother thing of like erasing entire histories of cultures. Like there's so much debate in like Greek and like there's a Greek and Norse and so on, like history and mythology, where they're still trying to figure out which parts of it are even the real thing and which parts of it are stuff rewritten to be homophobic and so on, because the Catholics are actually the only source we have for any of it. Like there's a lot of stuff we only know about it because all records of it were destroyed and their culture was erased, and all that was left over was some records that were made by Catholic priests that were intentionally rewriting it to sound a little more Catholic because they thought that was the only way to preserve it and have it not be destroyed. Like Snorri is it Snorri Sturluson? The guy that does the only surviving records of the Poetic Edda, and like all that we like the if you read all of Norse mythology, it's a short book. Like that's all that's left.
Yeah.
And it was all written by one Catholic priest, and a lot of it was changed by him so the Catholics wouldn't delete his version of it because they were getting rid of everything else about it. And that's just like that entire culture. That's all that's left of all of that history. And so there's so much to be drawn from that. Like which parts of these are them forcing in a like Jesus or God analogy, like how it's how Thor and Odin can become weirdly interchangeable in a way that sounds like the Holy Trinity, or like which parts of these are specifically created to like be a way to look down on the Norse people, or which parts of them introducing things like homophobia specifically because that makes it more appealing to Catholic ideals, and that's the only surviving version of that reality we have. Like that's it's our world's a fucking mess.
That same exact thing is seen all throughout Europe and other cultures, even here in Portugal. While I was studying archaeology in university and learning about the cultures that we had roughly during the same time that we had here in the region, because of course studying archaeology is such a practically oriented type of study that it's very localized. I didn't learn about Egypt or about Mesopotamia or stuff like that. It's all about what happened here, and there's multiple evidence, or there's multiple sites where it's reasonable to think that they had initiation rites similar to baptism here, which is kind of common all around the world. It's not normal, but it was done in a way very similar to what the Catholic Church would sort of standardize 500 years later, and we have no records whatsoever, no written records of anything of the people that lived here from between 600 BC, 600 Common Era, and 850 I think is where we start having some records. So there's 2 centuries and a half easy of no records whatsoever, and they existed. Those records existed up well until the 14th century. They were destroyed. There's the Catholic Church had those because they were the people who knew the most. It's very common all throughout the world. What's the word for Islam church? It's not Islam. What? I'm sorry.
Islamic?
A mosque
Is oh
yeah, but like what I'm saying is that the priests and the monasteries and all that had the knowledge here, but this happens as well throughout Asia and throughout Africa with different religions. And I was thinking specifically of Islam because they have also for a long time they had the monopoly on knowledge, and that's the same thing here in Europe. But they rewrite. The church rewrote and deleted a lot of stuff, and the Vikings. We're lucky to know so much about the Norse mythology because there's so much that we have no idea what happened, no idea what they were, who they were, what they thought.
It's in the conqueror's best interest to just delete all history of the conquered. And
well,
it's just,
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean that's pretty much how most history is gone. It's just kind of like you want to stomp out the thing that's opposed to your thing because otherwise there'll be opposition to your thing. But
it just speaks to the insidious nature of just like how much you should always question whether or not we even know things that we think we know about history and culture and so on.
Point. Yeah, that's definitely the point.
There's so much to it.
You should always you should always be second guessing anything you
American
hear.
school teaches us about civil rights and racism like it's over and we solved it.
Yeah.
Well, they also teach
It's
it in a way
basically
that's
like
not very.
we had slavery, and then Lincoln was like, no more of that, and then we had racism, and then Martin Luther King was like, I have a dream, and then he fixed it like that day, and everyone was like, wow, what a beautiful speech. I'm not racist anymore, as opposed to like, murdering him.
I
Which is what
remember the
happened.
takeaway from. I remember the takeaway from civil rights in school was that like the black people started it.
Like no one's
that was
taught
the
no one's
whole-
taught how to recognize
Yeah.
racism in modern society or anything actually useful. They're just taught like vague bullet points of a thing that's in the past. Just like how we study McCarthyism and the Crucible as like, wow, isn't this interesting? How like this is how allegory works, and not like, hey, this is still happening. It literally never stopped. The Red Scare is
there's-
today.
I think there's
Yep.
just a problem though of like how do you compact so much? How do you teach people that the world is just broken? 100%. There is no there's no peace in this world. It's just every aspect of it is fucked. And like, how do you condense all of that into a semester-long class for children who are like the most detached from this fucked society as possible?
Well, they
You
sure
need
as
to
fuck
think-
tried, and Trump reacted to that because they were doing that was the whole point of that project. With the year is it 1776? Numbers are hard. I'm bad at dates.
1618?
Well, the
I don't
17, I
remember.
think
That's the-
1776 was the good one, and Trump's revisionist nightmare one that was basically more successful, I believe, was the 16 something one.
1776 was the.
You're
was
talking
like-
about the critical race theory thing?
Yeah, it was about
No,
reteaching
well,
history in the context of the racial problems and so on. Like the fact that we're taught in school about how we had slaves and indentured servitude people, and it was never discussed. It's never taught to us as kids that like the whole reason the indentured servitude people were given more rights and more freedoms and were treated better and like the way they were treated was changed was specifically because they were at risk of allying with the slaves, and so they need to divide them. Like that was the point. That was like the origin of race in America. That's when we started categorizing people, and that
It's literally
I
separating
shouldn't
the
be
class
learning that when
structure.
I'm 30. I should be learning that when I was taught about that in the first place.
But to answer
How many
Andrew's
of us
question,
found out about Tulsa in 2020? What the fuck?
when it showed up on television, what was that?
It was a
TV
superhero
series?
television show taught
Yeah.
people about Tulsa instead of their schools.
And Tulsa isn't even the only time that happened, by the way.
No.
I don't know the name of where it happened, but I think it was a few years after the same thing happened.
Like they're all
Where
like they just
an
want to
affluent-
teach people how to hate that white people are bad and that we should hate
But I think-
America and so on. It's like no, it's about basic observation of what we've done as a society and what our history is, so we don't repeat it. Like the fact that there was a place literally called Black Wall Street that was doing well, and it was firebombed out of existence because a black guy supposedly looked at a woman once. And that just escalated into because they were just so overtly racist about
Into
any kind of
genocide,
race
basically.
mixing that they did a genocide.
Yeah, and they it's absolutely.
But it's only a genocide when other people do it because the America is only good ever, and we should never acknowledge any past mistakes, and then we can just be idiots in public all the time, I guess.
To answer Andrew's question, how do you stop that? You need. I think it's. This is my personal opinion, so maybe I'm wrong. So feel free to take this with a grain of salt. I think it's not possible to deprogram people who have lived their entire lives completely blinded to the history of the United States or whatever country they live in. I think the only way to do it is the only way to fix it is to remove the profit motives behind why people continue to be taught stuff like this. And obviously removing profit motives in the US.
Yeah, because school doesn't exist to teach you how to be a well-rounded person, knowledgeable about the world around you. It exists.
No, it exists to send you to the military.
to send you to the workforce in the military.
And the military, yeah. Yeah,
That was
and
literally
same
the
happens
original
for
point of
television.
why schools came out in America. Like why they were created was that they were essentially pushed by private industry to as a government incentive to create workers that were already trained, so they didn't have to train them.
It's just that's why it's a long journey. You need to remove all the profit.
I feel sorry for the people that are like hearing new things today.
It's very I have heard that. I know what you're referring to. I've heard what you're talking about.
Nothing in society exists for the reason that you would hope it does. Even the good-ish things like school.
Yeah, but like that's the thing mess. is like it. And school is such a school's really fun.
We basically only ever do good things on accident.
Well, yeah, that's human history. Is by like, oops, we made an accident, but it turned out to be good. It was on purpose now. The
like school is just an extended work training, like fucking job training program for Best Buy.
Paid by the
school's a job. Yeah, school's just a job course, so you can get so you can just get kids into the workforce faster. It's just like, but again, even schools,
people say they don't want to pay for other people's college tuition. It's like, too late, buddy.
But well, that's the thing though, is like there are people who literally don't want to pay for public school. They don't think they should have to pay for like public school if they don't have children.
That
like,
is not a valid argument though.
So I don't know why I have to pay taxes for schools
not a valid
if I'm never
argument.
gonna have a child. Well,
yeah, no,
there is no valid argument to be anti-tax. What the fuck? It can't be, because you're part of the society. So either don't pay taxes and get the fuck out, or pay taxes and be a part of it.
Because like, even if it's good on accident, school is a net positive.
For sure.
Any social service
without it.
Yeah, like any social service that benefits all the people in your social service, like in your social circle, is a net positive for you, even if it comes at your expense. Like even if you can't directly benefit from it, you benefit from the trickling effect. You know that fucking lie that your president said once? Like you can have trickling actual success if you do it in a small scale. Like if you pay for schools to have money, then it turns out the people that go to school and learn turn out to be better for your society, and then you benefit from that better society that they help build in the future. When you're an old, decrepit, fucking teat-suckling piece of shit on the goddamn government money that you like sat there and vocally hated for all your life, and now you can't live without it. Like, I wish you could just take Social Security away from all the old people. Like, seriously, I wish like right now for all boomers, you just cut Social Security and be done with it. And they would be furious. They'd be like, what the fuck did I pay into? Yeah, right? How weird is that? Like, isn't it really frustrating? Like, it's just...
I look forward to the bad faith interpretation in the comments this week.
That's fine. I don't give a shit. At this point, all I care about is like...
No, Andrew, you don't understand, Andrew. You don't have class solidarity because you won't voice the Tiger Daddy. Why won't you voice the Tiger Daddy for a job?
I don't need class solidarity because my personal and ever political view will always be too extremist to function. But I don't have to act on it, and I just do my due diligence and move on with life. I pay my taxes, I vote responsibly, and move on. But like, this isn't the world I like. I don't want to live in this shitty dystopia. But I look outside and go, where else could I live? Oh no, nowhere else. They're all fucking shitty dystopias. Like, great. Choose your pick. Which color dystopia do you like more? Purple, red, green? And like, there's no actual, like, there's
Portugal. We have cakes.
But that's not enough. I don't want just cakes. I want everything. I want every single thing that I think I deserve. I want free education. I want free healthcare. I want free, I don't want to pay, what's it called? I don't want to be paying like fucking weird recycling fees because people won't fucking recycle. It's not my fault. You're a fucking Portugal. Asshole. Like
that's all the checks. That's good.
I don't want a standing military in your country. I don't want fucking borders in your country. I don't want fucking weird like. I don't want like landlords to be legal in your country. I don't want fucking.
This is the angriest recitation of Imagine I've ever heard.
Like I
No,
just
but it's good. I like it.
It seems
I like it.
so fucking stupid.
Imagine
that,
if there's no borders. It's easy if you try.
Yeah, you know what
Sean
it's
Paul's
called?
actually.
furious today.
It's called a fucking pre-Western society. Turns out, like weird how that happened.
It
It's
was
just like,
it was here before we got here.
It's yeah. I remember
who's
somebody.
Is there literally hundreds and thousands of Canadians at the border, all the way from the beginning of it to the end, standing in a perfect formation line, holding their arms in a chain link formation, making sure that border line doesn't get crossed? Or is it just fucking bullshit that you made up on the fly and just said like, that's straight,
option.
right? And then someone
The
goes,
second option.
there's actually a fucking lake in between there. Is that okay? Around the lake then.
There's
This is
really
fucking
funny
awful.
narratives.
It's
There's
so
really funny
fucking
narratives when in the cases where people are still trying to figure out the border that was decided a long time ago,
And also
but
the
they still
genocide
don't know
that
what it
happened.
means.
And the genocide that happened. Don't forget about that.
Oh, there's a
And
lot.
we have to live in a state where someone decided the worst possible designs for these states. I fucking hate them. And
feel
like
like
I don't get to change that. I can't like elect a person that's gonna be like, I'm gonna make California a square because it needs to be a square. I don't want it to be a fucking half square. We tried, and then like Nevada and Arizona happened, so we have to kind of like curve around the cooties.
Humans
and then,
kind of
like, made a-
professionally make a problem out of just the act of map drawing. Like, there's so
It
many
sounds like-
lines that are just drawn that then create like millennia long problems. It's like, oh,
Like what is
fuck.
Oklahoma?
And it happens both macro and micro scale. Like this entire like these people must live together in one country now, and that's going to be a problem. But fuck it, is just like a whole ongoing thing throughout just all of the world, thanks to both the Americans and the English just fucking with other countries and then running away. But even on the micro scale, it's just like the gerrymandering and all these messes of like, instead of just taking apart doing anything honestly, let's see how I can like reconstruct the maps to fuck the world up. Like it happens everywhere every day, and it's never stopping. But I feel like I should contextualize Tiger Daddy.
No. I just want to make one more point before you do
Yeah.
that. The only fucking state in this country that matters or that got it right was Wyoming. Why everyone should follow Wyoming's example of being a perfect shape. That's how it should always.
Is it just a rectangle?
It's just a fucking square. It's just a perfect fucking square. It's just someone decided, no, I'm not making a stupid fucking Oklahoma shape.
It's not,
and
right?
I'm not making.
It has to be.
It is.
We don't have a square, do we? It has to be a
No, it's a
rectangle.
It is a square.
Okay.
Look at Wyoming.
Okay.
It's
I was like, I don't
rectangle.
think we have a square. That'd be impressive.
It's wider than it is taller.
Well, yeah, but it's as close as you get to a square in this country, and it's beautiful. That's how every state should
Can you
be. And then
just imagine if the fucking map of the United States just looked like Minecraft?
oh, I'm sorry, Colorado also almost got it right, but theirs
They
is a little
screwed
bit.
up on the
Some of the
Southwest,
rectangles
didn't they?
kind of collide.
But
Yeah,
it's-
it would be kind of a weird border at the.
But then you got like, then you got shit like South Dakota and North Dakota. And you're like, you're so close. You're just so fucking close. Just cut off whatever the shit is you're going on at the bottom and the sides here.
It's
Like,
usually there's
why
like a
didn't
river
you
or
just-
something.
Yeah, like
Which,
there's a city.
not a great
like Fargo.
permanent border,
Fargo's
as it turns
literally
out,
cut
'cause
in
rivers
half.
move.
Like, well, yeah, that too. But like, there's literally a
They
city
should have
on the border
listened. They should
between.
have listened to my college presentation about oxbow lakes and meandering streams before they drew the maps based on rivers.
I mean, this.
Because I can teach you all about how that works.
It looks funny now. Like, it's really funny when you go and look at Google Maps now and you go like, hey, how come like Missouri looks like shit? And then you zoom in and you're like, uh-oh, someone followed a lake that doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's just fucking dumb. Like, it's great. You just look through and you're like, oh, I see what you did there. And then you look at other states where you're like, you're like Arkansas or Arkansas, what happened to you?
Arkansas?
Like Arkansas. Yeah. It's supposed to be Arkansas, but you spelt it wrong, so that's your fault.
well, it's Tennessee right next to it, so
It sounds
also,
like a fucking Final Fantasy spell.
It's
Like you've
it's
got
spelled like that.
Kansas, and then later in the game you get Arkansas. Then you get Giga Kansas.
Giga Kansas. It's just like, but
that
it's
sounds
funny.
like
It's
something
just,
a Japanese would write in a video game.
It's-
I can
that's
definitely
really-
believe that.
That's the names of the spells, at least in 10.
That is
I
absolutely
don't think it's
something they would
R.
do.
I think it's something else, but it's like regular spell, better spell, giga spell. Like that's the same. Fire, is the 3 fire
Yeah.
spells.
But sorry.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I
you
figured
can
out
bring
Thunder
you can bring
Aga.
context. You can bring
Oh, to the
context
Tiger Daddy, yeah.
Tiger Daddy. But
Yeah,
I just
so
want to get that point
for
in.
context, last week I made what's kind of it's just a reoccurring observation where I tease Andrew because back when we did Let's Plays on Sad Games exclusively, our most popular series was Tokyo Jungle, and then when we started doing solo stuff, his most popular stuff was visual novels, and then one day I linked him Neko Jishi as like a joke, but then he actually did a series on it, and it's his like second most popular visual novel on his whole channel. And it's like, aha, 'cause it's the confluence of these two things, the furry audience and the visual novel audience. So last episode I used that joke and teased him about like, well, you just gotta keep doing visual novels, furry visual novels for the like all the time on your channel, and you'll make it big, and then you'll reach your final form as a furry visual novel voice actor. Like that was the joke last episode, and Andrew, an employed man in modern society who has a job already, was like, why would I do something that makes me miserable if I can avoid it? A normal, reasonable statement, and a bad faith lunatic that's terminally online in the comments is like, he's like, he
People
called
do
him,
jobs to survive.
yeah, people,
That
don't
was-
you understand that people do jobs to survive, you entitled child? Have some class solidarity. And like, I'm probably burning the bridge with that person, but also his comment was stupid, and if he's not smart enough to understand that, then
It was
you're your
about
own problem,
voice
man.
acting a video game character.
Why won't you
How-
be a so you know, I was just been having fun with that stupid idea of like voice acting Tiger Daddy as Praxis. if you want to be a proper socialist or communist, if you want to have class solidarity, you gotta voice the Tiger Daddy.
You gotta, Andrew.
There's only two people in this world: Tiger Daddies and entitled children.
Sorry,
you're gonna
whores. I guess
you're gonna-
I guess I'm jumping the fence to the other class. Like I'm not gonna be.
I'm sorry, pores. I'm and I'm sorry, dude, but your comment was just so fucking stupid, and it's brought me such joy. I've been laughing about it all fucking day.
I mean, I get
Ever
it.
since
I get
ever
the.
since I had the thought Tiger Daddy is Praxis, I haven't gotten over it for like the last 4 hours.
I get the idea that like some people can't choose their jobs, which is like unfortunate
Yeah.
and sad.
Including
I feel
voice
bad
actors,
for
by
those-
the way.
But it's
including
just-
voice actors, because
It's
Yeah.
just such an obvious projecting onto you, though, because you never said anything like what they're mad at. And the funniest part of this entire scenario, besides how funny Tiger Daddy is Praxis is as a sentence, because it's incredible, is just the fact that, like, in the quote where they're angry at you, they literally say, here's their quote of you that they're so angry at, is, why would I want to do that if I could avoid that? Is in quotes. That's their
right
quote
there.
of you they're angry at. They literally
If I
include
could.
in the quote that the caveat that you can avoid doing that. Like, they self-owned. They don't read the thing they quoted, which is the specific context of the fact that you don't have to work that job. And not in like I'm so entitled, I've got trust funds and I don't have to work at all. It's like, no, I have a job. I don't need to be Tiger Daddy.
Yeah, I got way other things to be spending. my
Wait, but
time
did you
with.
actually get offered the Tiger Daddy job?
No.
No.
Oh.
It's a hypothetical
Yeah.
joke
So it's
of
super
what would
hypothetical.
happen if he became a visual novel furry YouTuber until eventually he'd become an influencer. This is how it works. You eventually are famous enough
And
for
then-
the specific brand that you do, and then people contact you because they want you to be in the thing. A lot of YouTubers voice act games in the particular genre that they're famous for doing Let's Plays of. So this fucking Andrew's final form would inevitably be in this hypothetical that he would end up voicing a furry visual novel for real instead of just in the Let's Play. Like fucking
Yeah,
Carnage
yeah.
being in Cyberpunk, or Jesse Cox being in Cyberpunk, or other people being in Cyberpunk.
Oh, Felicia Day? No, wait.
Felicia Day is in a lot of
Cyberpunk?
things, but not Cyberpunk.
No, I was thinking of the other one, the one that was the only one that I actually thought was somebody I knew, and then I went and looked up, and oh, that's her.
Felicia
I
Day
don't
is
remember her.
fucking everywhere. I watched a video essay about New Vegas like yesterday, and I was like, that character sounds like Felicia Day, and I looked him up, and that character was
Yes,
Felicia
yes.
Day. I think she's
She has,
like a
like,
party
3 of them.
member or something, or yeah, she's like
Yeah.
a bunch of characters in New Vegas. When I was playing WoW last week, I saw a character called Felicia Knight. I'm like, that's obvious. It's a little on the nose. I can guess who that is. But the Felicia Day is also I guess, yeah, it's the same thing. It's just like a person that did web series and stuff, and then just got beyond that. I have trouble thinking of her as being a web series person because she was so successful at getting beyond that
Yeah,
she's
even
in like TV
even Ashley
shows.
Birch. Even
Ashley Birch
and,
is everywhere. She became
yeah.
she's like a full-time voice actor now, and she originally just made game trailers parodies with her brother until he wrote a role for her in Borderlands 2 as Tiny
I mean,
Tina.
bless you. It takes practice. Voice acting is really complicated, and having
yeah.
the inroad into having mic presence and acting at the same time, like that's the best thing. If you just
Oh,
do
yeah.
skits, yeah.
It's super easy. Anyone can do it. You're
That's
not
why
gonna
all
get
the
into it
that's why all
easy.
the YouTubers that do it are worse.
Yes,
But
I
they're
can do
there
it.
because
you saw
the
that
people
I
are
can't.
a fan of them and want them to be in the game, and that's how it do.
There's two terrible types of voice actors: YouTubers and celebrities. Don't be any of those if you want to
That's
be a voice
right.
actor.
Why do movie actors and TV
Names.
Why do they
Names.
voice act so badly? Except for Patrick Stewart, he voice acts
Because
good.
that's not what they train to do. They literally are actors who
It
are
is
good
weird,
at
though.
acting on camera. Their
Yeah, but
voice
still, like-
actors have to take. No, voice acting is a different medium. You
It
have
is,
to.
it
you,
is.
You use your voice in a different way. You have to act
Yeah.
in a different way because you can't physically
Some
see a
people are
thing.
better.
When someone
some,
says
of-
like,
some supposed screen actors are way better voice actors than they are actual actors.
yeah, but it's
oh,
like it's about
not a physical role. Go back to being a
Yeah.
wolf.
Yeah, but look, look at Peter
a lot of it
Dinklage
is
in that game. Oh, I don't remember what game he did.
Destiny.
Was
Oh,
it Destiny?
God.
Oh,
Yes, he
He's
was-
so
he was in
bad.
Destiny,
Peter Dinklage
and it was
Ghost in
awful.
Destiny until he was replaced by Nolan North. In
Yeah, why?
Who-
Like, he's obviously an amazing actor. He's capable
Yeah.
of spotting when he's doing a bad thing. I
that
bet
wizard
they just
came
didn't give
from the
him.
moon.
I just
mean,
think that they
and-
didn't pay him enough to retake his lines. I think that's what
No,
happened.
Maybe, or he just
what
doesn't know how to
happened-
voice act in
Yeah, or-
in a vacuum.
I'm sure he does. Like, he
so
can
much
tell that he did it.
so much
No.
voice acting is so trash. They just give you lines with no context and
Yeah.
just say read them
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
There's,
Which is why
and
a
that's
lot
the thing
of
is
the
that
open world games have terrible voice acting.
And that's the thing is that a
Or-
voice actor, a professional voice actor, can usually find meaning within lines. They can usually, if no one
That's
will tell
true.
them the direction they have to go in, they will make up the direction because they can visualize what the direction might be from the language. They can look at the other words before leading up to this. They can look at the context. Like, is this in a village with a poor merchant? And you're not going to do your best like king impression. You know, like you do
And
like
you
you
know
have
these people are used to acting on a set with other actors
Yeah.
and like doing a scene together and like getting emotionally invested in it and doing a bunch of takes and then being like, that was good, we finally got it, but also let's do one more anyway. And like there's a,
Yeah.
there's like
And a
whole-
good example-
and then it's directed and edited and there's more to their performance than just their voice.
And a good
Yeah.
example of how this can go wrong in like visual media is like Star Wars. When you look at people who have no direction, like the prequels where they have just green screens around them, another guy dressed up like a Jedi, and someone says, all right, you're like here, go. And you're like, fucking beautiful day we're having, huh? Like
The sand, I
there's-
hate it.
Yeah, like you have to know.
You have
you
the
have to get
fucking General Grievous lightsaber blender happening 5 feet from Obi-Wan's face and he doesn't even like flinch.
Yeah, and like you could, so there are ways that like actual actors struggle to do their own job because they need certain visual cues or they need to have context to what they're doing. And sometimes in voice acting, you just don't get context. So you have to know how to properly convey or how to properly find context or meaning, or at the very least how to like make up a voice that works in all situations. Like you can have a voice that's like kind of sort of confused but also like inquisitive, or you can have like if someone's saying, if you see someone saying like, no, we don't have that here, you can kind of be like, well, I'm gonna do like 3 takes of that, and one of them's gonna be right. You know, like you can. I'll do the one where I'm angry. I'll do one where I'm kind of like neutral, and I'll do one where I'm excited. And one of those is the right one. But a normal actor is just gonna say like, no, we don't have that here, and then move on to the next line because you know they're expensive and they get paid by the hour, and you're not gonna sit there and have them do 20 different lines. But like that's the thing is like, and again, like
Get
YouTubers
the Norman
are,
Reedus and 24 guy problem, Kiefer Sutherland, where it's like,
yeah,
these two Konami games, protagonist isn't going to talk a whole lot all of a sudden. You know, the famously verbose Konami games, everyone's going to be talking at your silent protagonist for most of this game because we hired expensive people that have scheduling conflicts and things like that. And that's just a whole problem. Like, it was really entertaining. Like, I played a lot of Destiny around the time that the first 2 DLCs were coming out, and then like the first proper expansion, and then the patch where they replaced Peter Dinklage with Nolan North. And the funniest quirk of that whole process is the fact that specifically they so like his performance was bad, obviously, in the original game. But then they had 2 really bad, like, smaller expansions that came out where most of the content was just them making you replay old missions but backwards and hoping you won't notice that they just have you start at the end of the map and go back to the beginning of the map instead of the other way around, and that's quote unquote new content that they charged money for. The fucking lunatics.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was really bad. It was like it was like Neo's side content, but as DLC you paid for. But on top of that, they clearly couldn't get Peter Dinklage again. Like, they either couldn't afford him for the DLC, or he had a scheduling conflict for the rate that they were making it at. So what happened is Ghost, who walked you through every mission of the entire main campaign, suddenly said absolutely nothing, and each sub-campaign of the smaller DLCs had another character that was constantly on comms with you, like Cortana, basically. And they would talk you through every single quest, and were like omnisciently aware of whatever was happening and so on without being able to see it because they weren't there, because they're still like voice in your head. But they had to be Ghost for those campaigns because they couldn't get Peter Dinklage to play Ghost, but they weren't going to cast somebody else for Ghost, I guess, yet, until they could go back and redo the entire script of the original game and just throw all their Peter Dinklage money in the fucking fire because they none of it existed like a year later. It was incredible.
That sounds.
That game's fascinating. I can't believe it exists the way it did.
I remember my first interaction with a famous actor was with Oblivion, but I didn't know at the time that it also had Sean Bean, because I don't think Bethesda advertised Sean Bean as being in the game.
I thought you meant in real life. I thought you meant,
they
like,
didn't want to spoil he was going to die.
He does such a terrible job, though. Sean Bean does in that game. Seriously, he's
fired.
He's like not even trying to be a character. It's just him saying the lines. It's like, oh look, it's Boromir.
Yeah, but they can't spoil that it's going to be Sean Bean, because if you know it's Sean Bean, then you're like, oh, he dies. He'll be dead.
Yeah,
in a few
he
hours.
dies. He does die.
And then he dies because he dies in everything.
Yeah, he dies in everything.
Sean Bean's in Fallout 3. Patrick Stewart is in Oblivion.
No, Sean Bean it dies in Oblivion as well. He's there.
Does he? Oh, Sean Bean's your dad in Fallout 3, and Patrick Stewart is the king.
Oh, he does a much better
Oblivion.
job in Fallout 3 then. I forgot that it's him. Oh, much better.
The guy that dies at the beginning of Oblivion, the king.
No,
is
that's
Patrick
not the
Stewart.
guy. That's Patrick Stewart. Sean Bean also dies in Oblivion, but at the very end. Spoiler.
I didn't even realize he was in Oblivion. I don't know if I knew he was.
Yeah, he's Joffrey. He's Joffrey.
Oh my god, he looks like Sean Bean a little bit.
He also does, yeah.
Martin
Unless
Septim.
you mod the game.
Oh, so Sean Bean plays. Isn't that Patrick Stewart's son? Is that who Martin Septim is?
His bastard son. Yeah, that's more or less like that.
Yeah, you find him in a monastery, and you're like, you're the heir, Alistair, and you take him off to be the heir. Yeah, that was Sean Bean.
He's so his lines are so like forced and just sort of like he's in pain to voice them. But it's just him. I mean, as a person, that's it. Because by the time Oblivion came out, he already had years and years and years of experience, so he wasn't a new a new kid on the block, but it's just like it sounds like him. It's oh look, it's Sean Bean saying lines to the microphone. But then I think in Fallout 3 he's better. Hey, are you sure he's the dad in Fallout 3?
I don't know. All I can tell you is that it's just
I didn't know he was the dad in Fallout 3. I'm playing Fallout 3 and I didn't realize. Yeah, good. I like it when I can't tell who's voice acting.
He was your daddy.
The game starts with the literal sounds of...
What?
I don't know if it came through the microphone.
Oh, wait. No, that wasn't Sean Bean, was it? That was Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson, that's the one. I was
I'm
confused
I'm mixing up my dudes. Yeah, Liam Neeson is your dad in Fallout 3.
Oh, they advertised Liam Neeson in Fallout 3, all right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's cool. It's Qui-Gon.
He does a good
I
job,
remember
think.
when I was 9.
Oh my god. Ugh. Awful.
It was the sweet spot before he started saying distressing things on the news. And you're like, no, why are you doing this?
Oh, he's the one that guy is the guy that wanted to kill. I don't remember what it was.
He's like, I went out planning on killing a black man that day. I'm like, why are you volunteering this story? What?
And then doubling down when people ask if you were going to do it again.
Did you just decide to retire from acting today? Like, I don't. It's up there with like, is it Matt Damon's confusing story where he like,
Yeah.
it sounded like he explained that like his daughter explained to him why saying like homophobic slurs is bad, and then he's going to stop doing it because of that, and now he's like, no, I never said it. That was
I think wanting to kill a black man just going out to kill a black. I think that's worse than saying.
No, I'm not saying which one's better or worse. I'm just saying like it's just weird. They're both the same flavor of like, why are you volunteering this story?
Why are you saying these things?
No matter what flavor of self-improvement this is, why are you just like?
Because they're not aware that it's bad. They think that it shows that I'm growth.
Yeah,
it shows growth.
Usually
the N word.
You usually want to stick with the self-improvement narrative after we know you were bad already. You don't want to introduce the shock of the bad thing you did, because it's I think I said in the comments, I think we discussed this a few weeks ago, the Liam Neeson thing, and in the comments, the way I specified when people were talking about it being a self-improvement story, it's like when you introduce the problem that way and then go like, but I'm better now or whatever, the overwhelming news that everyone remembers is the problem that you just that they're alarmed to hear that they didn't know about before. So it's like, it's way the loudest part of that narrative is I was going to kill a black man, and then the really quiet part at the end is, but then I didn't. And you're like, what? You did not fucking like check the tone of this story before you volunteered it, because holy fuck,
that is really bad.
The part that people are going to remember is not the part you want. And that's the overwhelming. It's happened, and like we said, we had that conversation, and then like fucking poetry, this like Matt Damon thing started happening, and it's like, see, this is what it is. Like, you don't just keep it to yourself. I'm glad for you. Shut up. Like, what a bad idea to just introduce like, oh yeah, I just said the F slur all the time, then my daughter told me it was wrong, and I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of you for being so enlightened and smart, and I'm gonna learn from your example. And I'm like, okay, do that part. Don't volunteer the weird news that you liked to say the F slur all the time. That's just like a lot of news no one wants right now from you, because that's gonna be what everyone remembers.
I love the idea though that like he must, like, obviously a lot of these interviews happen in a brief like spur of the moment kind of vacuum situation where he's just like answering a question or something, and his agent isn't like necessarily attached to his hip. But could you imagine like Matt Damon's agent is sitting there and like I'm imagining he's like answering a phone call or something where he's like
I'm either
Damon's really
fired
busy,
or like double hired. I don't know which one.
but like he's sitting there like talking on the phone or something with his, and like Damon's like somewhere like an earshot away, but he's not like attached to the hip, and he's like and you hear he just hears in the background like, yeah, my daughter told me not to use the F slur. He's like, I'm sorry, I gotta go. Like, it's like how quick was the next snap for his agent to realize it is like his client just like basically like nuked their own public image real quick.
I have
Like,
seen some
what, you
PR
know?
agents do that though. In Formula One, there's some Formula One drivers over some years in the past where they are a little bit more talkative, and every interview is like, I'm thinking of Alonso specifically when he was at Mercedes. Oh, sorry, at McLaren. Like he would talk shit about the engine, and the PR agent was on top of that. Every time he was like talking about the engine, about the engine. The I think it was a woman at the time. She later worked with another one. I think I recognize her face from somewhere. But she would always be like behind him, and like, don't say that. And on the interviews, like live on television, it's really weird. So
You just imagine
I would
so
love
many
the
of those,
idea of-
so many of those people getting so much Schadenfreude from the just from watching all the people that had to like do damage control for Trump for 4 years. Like, at least I'm not that guy. Oh,
And then the
fuck.
thing is-
I don't know though.
how do those,
like I
how do
feel
those
like
people even those people aged 20 years?
did
Oh,
they
yeah,
though? Did anybody do damage control? Because it didn't seem like it. It
Well,
sure
the
seemed
thing-
like it was just
Oh,
like
people
whatever he can
tried.
say.
People
Grandpa
definitely
can say
tried.
whatever he wants on the TV.
Those people
Like,
work based on bonuses. Like their career is on the line as well. Like if they,
And obviously, yeah, I don't feel like it. There had to have been no one because it's not like he ever had a rating, like a whatever it is, the popular rating. Like his rating was never higher
Oh.
than 50. So like, there's no he like came in low and just never got higher. So I can't imagine someone was saying they're trying to make him look good, because if they did, then like for 4 years no one did their job, which I guess is like that's a good summary of that
Or-
the
or
administration for the last
or
4
worse.
years. But like still.
or worse than that, Andrew. For 4 years they were doing their job. That's why you don't know even worse things than that.
Oh god.
I don't think that's possible.
You,
Like,
you never heard about when he said, "I'm not going to beat my wife anymore."
Like, yeah, like I can't imagine he says anything worse, because like anything else he would say, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds like him, right? Didn't he say that? Like you can at this point now, you can kind of just like you can put it like a quote generator from an AI of like horrible things, and there's like a 49% chance that I would think it's a lie. Like
I mean,
the rest of
you
the
just-
time,
the,
I'll think it's.
I remember listening to the
Yeah.
news a lot during the Trump stuff, and it was one of the big takeaways was that he had one of the largest, like most rapid fire turnover rates of everybody that worked for him. And it's like that's that.
But isn't that like how is every
some
career,
of it
or
was
every
him
job?
turning on his own people constantly whenever anything went wrong, and then be like, and then
Yeah.
instantly being like, that guy I was praising every single day before it burned bridge. He was literally always the worst. I always hated him. Like, but the other element is like people just some cases of people being like, this is just going too far and I can't stand with this, and this is just he's too horrible and I can't be associated with this. And there's plenty of people that are just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't live this. Like, this is the most stressful thing that's ever happened.
Walking
I can't
on
be this
eggshells
dude. I
all the
can't
time.
be the guy that cleans up after this guy all the time. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. I will literally just go work service industry right now instead of doing this. I don't give a shit what the pay cut is. I will anything.
And then a pandemic happened, and you're like, "Oh no, I should have stayed on. Maybe I could have prevented this."
I don't think anybody is thinking
I don't
that
think anyone's
after.
that delusional to think they could have done anything
I
about
just-
that.
No, I mean,
don't-
what I mean, like
just
stayed
can't,
on
I
with
can't
Trump.
imagine. I can't imagine being somebody who has to manage public fucking figures, because like, how do you corral these goddamn people? Like, they're all of them live in bubbles. Like every single one of them live
Yeah.
in like these perfectly crafted spherical domes, and like they have no self-awareness of like their failures or their like troubledness, their like troubled problems. And so like when they're out in the public where these people are have no knowledge of just how bubbled these people are, and they interact with them, and it's like an alien talking to people like, yeah, I just do bad things all the time, isn't that what everyone thinks? And it's like, what? Like, what happened here? Who are you? Is this a human being? And then you have to have someone whose job it is to make them human. Like, you're taking these critically disjointed hunks of meat, and you have to like filter them through a person who makes them look like a human on the outside. And obviously there are times where they are away from that human. And so you have to like hope that you've trained them enough or something? Like, what do they do? Is there like, does a PR person come and sit down with them and is like, all right, Damon, now what did we learn from this experience? Don't talk about racial slurs with the public. They don't like that. Like, does someone sit there and tell him he did a no-no? Like, does someone hit him with a newspaper when the cameras are off? Like, no, Damon, that was bad. You don't say that in front of cameras. Like, how do you fix these problems? Because you look at
while being the person that they can fire.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like, so how do you, like, when you look at someone like what's his face? What was that guy who did the Jesus movie? Mel
Gibson, yeah.
Mel Gibson, there you go. Mel Gibson. Like, how do you PR Mel Gibson? How do you, like, what happens when he comes back from interview and he's like, that was a good interview, and you're like, Mel, look, I'm gonna tell you two things. Please fire me and just don't go outside anymore. like what are your options? What do you do?
Did he just kind of go away for a long time and only take on like some smallish roles, basically?
I imagined he looked at somebody and was like, okay, look, I'm hemorrhaging money like crazy and no one will hire me. How do I fix this? And the guy was like, you have two options: die or pretend to be dead for a long time. And so he just like didn't exist in the public's eye for long enough for them to like, who's that guy again? I think he like
sometimes
said
people just like
once.
lean into
like,
it.
Oh yeah, I think that's the worst thing though, because like you have
well yeah
actors
like,
can be
I think I heard that Louis C.K. just like revamped his entire comedy to be just pandering to the people that would still be listening to him at that point, because he had because the news had burned bridges with so much of everybody and most of his fan
the
base
profit
that
motive
like
again.
At that point he's like, well, I got to revamp my entire image to just appeal to the type of people that are like will just be like, it's bad, you got canceled, that kind of people. And that's like that's a choice. It definitely completely undoes any chance of like any sort of redemption arc or anything, because at that point you're just like, I'm just gonna dig myself deeper. Credit.
Yeah, just sort of like justifying all the backlash that he had in the first place.
Yeah,
that's why I admire Elijah Wood.
Kind of learning and growing.
Elijah Wood Elijah Wood. He's just he doesn't do anything. He's just a normal person, and he says it outright. He's just like, don't listen to me when I say things. I don't know anything. And he just likes riding his moped or whatever, and just does his thing. And
likes riding his
moped. He's the perfect soul. It's the normal guy that landed
He's so good in the movie. I don't feel at home in this world anymore, which we'll have to discuss at some point.
Like, he's just a good actor.
He's just such a weirdo. He's such a weirdo. And yeah. He's a sword guy in that movie.
Sword?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The kind of guy that collects swords. Like he's that kind of like a little weird dude. And you're just like, and he's such a weird specific character. He's like, oh yeah, I got like nunchucks and I listen to metal and stuff, and oh yeah, I'm gonna help you with your problems. Like, it's such a weird fucking movie. I hate to talk about that movie when I'm done talking about all my other movies.
I can't imagine that there's like, is there such a thing as a, I don't know, like, is there a good, is there a good outcome to
fame?
I'm trying to think of like, is there a way that you
like
can
being like canceled, basically?
Not being canceled, but like, is there a way that you can be without just radio silence? Can you be a good public figure? Like, is there a way? Like, what's like
having only positive things to say or whatever?
Yeah, like what is the path you have to take to be like, I guess Keanu Reeves, where you're just dead ass silent. You just never talk to people except to say like, hey, thanks
except
for
to promote your martial arts documentary.
Yeah. Like, you just show up to promote something, go like, hey, you should watch the thing I do. Is like, what do you do in your free time? Make the thing that you should watch. Like, all he talks about is the thing that he's there to promote, and then he just moves. Yeah. He just
I figure
turns to
any
a bat
public
and flies
figure,
off
if
into
you
the
have the
distance.
chance to look at them more, you'll find out more bad things about them. But it's not necessarily like damning stuff so much as just stuff you won't fully agree with, and like, because everybody's different, no one's safe from being like disagreed with on something. But it's not really that big of a deal. It's more like certain people are they just have terrifying news that's just waiting to come out, and that makes you kind of gun shy about everybody, because you're just like nervous now that everyone else is going to have secrets.
I don't think that's something that that is generally the biggest problem with being famous, though. I think the problem with being famous is that you're used, like, it's in that question that Andrew just said, what do you do in your free time? Is that as a famous person, and no, it doesn't matter what you're famous for. It could be acting, but it could be being a politician or having a big podcast on Spotify. As a famous person, your fame is used to prop up other people's means of living. And when I say means of living, it's just money.
Yeah.
Just either if they're journalists or if
if
they
you
have a
admit
podcast.
to a
or-
lifestyle, your lifestyle is like a model now. And
Yeah.
an aspiration, or you're endorsing a product and so on.
Yeah. And so if you're not aware as a famous person, and this happens like to young rock stars a lot, like if you look back, as a young person, if you're not aware of the power that your fame has and like the real richness of that fame, that social capital in a way, if you're not aware of it, it basically gets used up. Oh no, I say used up. It gets, other people will use it for you, and you will use it in ways that maybe you don't want to use. And whether it is by saying the wrong things or by backing bad people or whatever, somebody who it's the sort of, it's that effect of somebody who gets famous too quickly and doesn't know how to use that fame. That happens because other people know how to use that fame for them, and they will take advantage of that, and they will sort of hook up to you and just sort of like attach themselves to you and use that to their advantage, or you will use it as a person, as an individual, you'll use it by mistake. And I think it's just dangerous. Fame in general is such a weird byproduct of what I'm saying here. The reason why people are famous is because by being famous, they can earn money, or other people can earn money on their account. It's sort of like, it's not the point of the system; it's a byproduct of the system. And because of that, it's just sort of, at the same time, it's kind of a pure objective when somebody says, "Oh, I want to be famous." Sometimes it kind of comes from a pure place in the sense of it's not really, they're not saying that they want something else because they're famous, because fame can be a means to an end, but a lot of the time it's just a means to an end, and being famous
it's like a way of reaching like validation or self-respect, or like the feeling of being respected and liked by your peers or so on. Like it's like an extreme version of that. Like everybody likes you or whatever, which is like on some level deep down what like most people want on some level, just
that's
because we're
nice.
social animals and we want like to feel safe and included, and that we're like doing the right thing and the right people like us and so on, as opposed to just being alone and miserable and so on. Like there's just like parts of us that are programmed a certain way, and we're like really threatened by stuff that makes us feel like we're outside of the norm or anything. And fame is like the extreme. You are the ultra norm.
Yeah.
And yet we live in a
The
world where it's like, what is it?
ultra-norm?
I think, God, what's the fucking stat? It's terrifying. I think I heard there's like 10,000 YouTubers with 1 million subscribers or something, and I'm like, I can't comprehend that. What the fuck does that mean? How is that true? What? Like, it's some terrifying number, and I'm like, that's not okay. How did we get there?
But subscribers don't mean anything. You know that.
So many. How many?
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of them is just if you
22,000 22,000 YouTubers have 1 million subscribers. There used to be like
But what
6.
what does that
I used to know the
mean,
names
though?
of all of them.
Like,
I saw.
but there's
it's
a
like,
thing
I've been
where
on this
like,
platform
what
since
is-
2005. I used to be able to name every channel with 1 million subscribers.
Well,
But again, you can look at those channels and like, is it really 1 million subscribers, or is
Exactly.
it? Yeah, like are they getting the way I interpret it is it's you should be getting at least more than 50% of the amount of views compared to your subscribers. Like if you're like a million, if you have 1 million subscribers and you only get 100K views, I don't think you have 1 million subscribers. Like that's not the way I see it. I see it as like you have less than that. That's just not enough. Like why subscribe to somebody if you don't watch the videos? Well, people can just subscribe because it's free and they don't have to necessarily watch your videos or engage with your content. But there's a number that goes up, and that number has some kind of monetary value to advertisers. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean eyes on screen. And so I don't know, like it like when it's weird. Like when you watch like a movie, like take a video or like an actor that stars in a fucking, I don't know, like Avengers, and Avengers made $1 billion, which means it had to have been seen by X amount of people. Like you can't just make money without being seen, basically, and or at least in relative terms. And so like that's crazy. That means that like this many people saw these people on a screen, whereas a YouTuber could be like, I have 1 million subscribers, but not 1 million people have seen me or even know of my channel. Like,
No,
I don't know.
I mean, 1 million people
that's
must
not
have.
how
but
that
just-
works.
But maybe not.
but
It's not
You
the
could
same
not have
proportion.
1 million regular viewers, but people don't just magically subscribe without ever
Subscribe.
encountering your channel.
I think there is something
But
that happens
does
on YouTube
happen.
though. There's
That
something
does
that happens on
happen.
YouTube is with some companies, some media companies will just create channels all over the place and focus channels based on search engine optimization, and they'll do basically content farms. That sort of, do you know those videos where people cook zany recipes that look impossible? Or that tic-tac-toe, it's not tic-tac-toe, what is it? Was it a Pez dispenser that people loaded the Pez dispenser in the wrong way? And it's just like viral videos that are basically farmed off of content farm, basically video farms and content farms. And there's literally hundreds of companies that outsource their video production, and all they focus on is search engine optimization, and they'll re-upload these videos in multiple different channels, and they'll use the search engine, the algorithm, the understanding of the YouTube's algorithm to game the system and just gain a profit. And because each video costs them like $100 or $150, and they only need to really have a relatively small portfolio of videos to make channels grow, they gain huge amount of profits because they're front-ending the investment for almost nothing. And these are high-quality videos as well. Like you'll see this on YouTube if you start to look at the trending page a lot. And it's just like crap content, like either... sometimes it's instructional videos about the simplest things that don't matter for anything. For a while, it was children's videos. Remember that whole thing about Spider-Man being pregnant with something?
Oh yeah, algorithmically generated rando nonsense. It's just like noise.
All of that is
I did check today and a minute ago, and yeah, I think it's like the third most subscribed channel or something is like a nursery rhyme channel, and like I was surprised to see that in the top 10 is like 5 Minute Crafts, which is one of those websites. That's one of the channels that just makes fake videos. Like they're
literally
like
fake.
They're literally fake. Like Anne Reardon makes a lot of debunking videos about them because they just use editing tricks to fake their videos. Like all of their life hacks and cooking videos are just literally impossible. They just aren't real.
Yeah.
Well, if you microwave this fucking cream or whatever, it turns into a whole stick of butter or whatever the fuck nonsense.
And all of that, and all the people who actually work on those videos get paid so little because they're not even employees of the company. They're employees of content farms that are basically.
There is so much famous content on YouTube that is basically just magic tricks where somebody puts something in a microwave and then they cut and then they take something else out of the microwave. And it's just a matching shot where like they just don't move the camera, so you can't tell the edit happened. And like,
and it's done in a studio, so it's
like,
the lighting
wow, I microwaved a strawberry and I made ice cream, and it's like, what a cool life hack. And then people do those, then people like recreate that stuff. And they're like, why am I a bad cook? I can't figure it out. And then they get demoralized because they think that they're like uniquely bad at this really easy stuff they saw on YouTube, but it's because these channels lie to them because the snappy, unbelievable content does better, so it's profitable to just lie all the time. And some of it's dangerous because they're like, might put the stuff in the microwave, and it's like, that will explode. You burn like people have literally been burned and hurt from trying to recreate these videos, and those channels face no consequences for putting out dangerous content that is bad. DIY
videos in general, even if they're not fake, they're always presented in such a way, and this is an age-old problem, but since the times of television. But they are always presented in a way that makes it very simple. And I myself have fallen to the glamour of, oh, it's so easy with carpentry things. For a while, and I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make a table for me, but still haven't done that. For a while, I was preparing. I was like, oh, look at this. They make all this. It's easy. I mean, they know how to do it, but it's easy. I can do it. But the problem is, any work that you do by yourself, and it doesn't matter if it has to do with with your hands or if it's on a computer. People who are so used to working on any field, and they know how to showcase their work, they're not going to talk about the stuff that they don't have to worry anymore because they had to learn it years and years in the past. Like doing YouTube videos, if I show anybody how to make YouTube videos, I'm not going to really remember, and I'm certainly not going to make a profit by making videos about it, if I just talk about figuring out what's wrong with my freaking OBS that's not recording properly because it's not capturing the game. And that's such a huge part of doing YouTube videos, is dealing with
that was why I was terrified of building my computer. It was like, so many of these things that I look up about how to do something are going to make some kind of baseline assumption that I will know something, and I will make that mistake.
And for my carpentry, it's the difficult bit is using your pencil properly. And they don't show you how to do your pencil properly. They show how to use those shiny tools and how to paint the things all nice. And the pencil is difficult because it requires. It's just practice, really. I'll practice. I'll get there. I'll make a table for myself.
I get so flummoxed when I set myself up to do like a big plan, and I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm gonna do it, and I've got to take these steps, and I've got to prepare by getting these items, and I've done it all right, and then something will always go wrong in this big process, and then I'll have no idea how to improvise, and I'm like, it's all fucked. I get really stressed out when I have to get like 10 ingredients and then start a cooking process and then find out that something is wrong in the middle of the whole thing. Or like when you I just know going into a computer build, like I'm gonna think I did everything and then it's not gonna boot and something's just gonna be wrong. Or like I'm gonna hit a point where like the labels here don't make sense. Where does this go? Like when you're plugging everything into your CPU and there's so many tiny little plugs for all these different little like fans and things. I'm like, if I do this wrong, something's just gonna like burn. Like
you might burn,
like,
yes.
And every single fucking guide online about how to build your computer is like, it's really easy. It's basically just Legos. It's so simple, but also if you fuck this up, it will literally brick your entire computer. I'm like, wow. Great.
Yeah, well, building a computer is like
material,
Legos, but setting up a computer is not. That's the difference. It's like, yeah, it's easy. You just push, like you can't put the RAM into your graphics card slot. You just can't do that. But it's really easy. But the moment you press the power button, now we've turned from building a computer to setting up a computer. And setting up a computer is fucking awful. Like you need to make sure a lot of settings are correct or things will just go terribly.
It can
like,
be.
You can't,
it can be.
It doesn't matter if you put your graphics card like it doesn't matter what graphics card you put into your motherboard as long as you put a graphics card in your motherboard. It doesn't matter, well, it matters what kind of RAM you put in, but it doesn't matter which position you put that RAM in. But the people will argue that you're supposed to do the 1, 2, 3, 4, but like,
imagine
sure.
No, you need to check your motherboard. Motherboards are different in regards.
I mean, it matters, but it doesn't kill it.
No,
it doesn't kill it.
But what happens, like for example, you have an old computer that you bought, and now you want a new graphics card, and you install it, and then the computer just doesn't turn on when you install the graphics card, and the reason is you don't know it at the time, but the reason is because you didn't get the power to the graphics card hooked up, because your old graphics card didn't use power, but your new one, because it's powerful, the new one does. And you don't know this. This happened to me when I was like 16 and the computer wouldn't turn on with the new graphics card. I was freaked out. I didn't have internet at the time. I had to get a new PSU for that because it didn't have the cables. So all that, like, and that's just an example. Like what happens if what happened to me once is I and this was actually recent. I connected the front panel USB cable to the audio output of the motherboard because it's the same exact pin layout, and my eyes are knackered. I can't see very well. And then when I put a USB pen in, it didn't detect in the computer, and I'm like, ooh, is the pen bust or is the or is the USB port bust? I picked up the mouse and I put it in the USB port. The mouse wouldn't detect either. And of course, both the pen and the mouse were bust because it was feeding 5 volts into data ports. And so basically I bricked both the pen and the mouse. And I learned my lesson pretty fast. But you could just keep trying other things and killing them all while you were doing it because it was hooked up to the wrong thing.
Computers are astonishingly complicated.
The thing is, you only learn by your mistakes.
I
have a support team, basically. Like, collectively, you, like, both of you and Bird and Effie and Marty have so much computer knowledge. And sometimes I'll have a weird problem and no one has any idea what's happening.
I mean, your graphics card was crashing because your controller didn't have the firmware updated.
Yes, like my screen would turn black, and and then when it came back, my game would have like slightly turned windowed for a second and then crashed. Except Yakuza would recover, but any indie game I was playing would crash, and that was a huge problem for a lot of them because it made them unplayable. And yeah, it ultimately, what I did is I went into my event viewer, got a weird string I was able to copy paste into my Google search, and it was tied to like updating the Xbox Series X controller. So I downloaded the accessories app on the Windows Store and then updated my controller via USB, and then it stopped happening. And I'm like, what the fuck?
What a champ. That is a victory for the ages, honestly.
This? I hate it.
Seriously though, you solved it like a champ. That was incredible.
I hate there's two things that are the worst about being a professional like Let's Player is, one, you have to just you have a daisy chain of like this whole series of pieces of hardware and software that all have to work all the time without fail, and that just has to not go wrong. And the other thing is that like every single second of you playing a game is under constant scrutiny by thousands of people, and that's the whole other thing. But yeah, like on the technical part, what's so fucking baffling about computers and everything is that like, and Andrew knows this and you know this, like, no matter how long you do this, you keep having problems that have never happened before.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know what that is. I don't even know how to Google that. What is that?
Yep.
Even down to weird things like how I talk about how like it's not like auto ducking, it's something else. Like where like when one person talks, other people on Discord, like their voices like they sound like they've been noise removed or something. Like, and it's like, what does that happen? Why does some people's voices fuck up when other people talk on Discord, but only some people from certain people's perspectives? But the people that are hearing some people do that, it's not everyone, it's just specific people. Like at some points I was like, I think it's everyone who's not American. I think all the Americans, their voices play at full volume, but all the non-Americans, are they coming from a different server and it like auto ducks? Like, what is happening here? And like, I've never solved that. Every now and then it'll happen again. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't even know how to Google that. What do you call any of the things that are happening there? And I'm so like, there's a whole odyssey of like, how do I Google my screen turns black for some reason? And of course it's a lot of like threads about graphics cards and updating your firmware and like, or like your card is dying, all these other things that are like not what I'm talking about, because they're talking about their stuff turning black and just staying that way. But like, how do you specify in your search that it just turns black for a second and like the specific way that it's happening? I had entire moments where I would sit there with my phone pointed at my screen, filming for half an hour, trying to catch it on camera so I could show it in a video. Like I recorded like a 10 or 20 minute like troubleshooting video that was me just discussing my problems, because I was going to upload that to YouTube just to see if anyone had encountered my incredibly specific thing, because that's the only way to solve technical problems half the time. But then like in the process of maybe getting ready to upload the finished video I'd already made about that, I then happened to like have the epiphany about the event viewer stuff that I ended up doing, and I solved it myself like at the last second. But like, I was that desperate that I'm like, okay, my entire YouTube audience, does somebody know what this is? Because that's the best chance, is just encountering somebody that has found that shiny Pokemon before.
Yep, that's
hate it.
Yeah, I mean that's how most of tech support is run, though. Most of tech support is just a lot of figuring out key issues and trying to piece them all together to either knowledge you already have or then trying to figure out what in the hell could be causing this.
What in the Sam
And-
Hale?
And a lot of the time it's not easy. It's not easy to figure out, something stupid like that. And computers are worse because computers are this horrible nightmare that's imagine like a Tetris field. Like imagine when you're laying Tetris blocks, but instead of putting them in the right way to make them go away to make a Tetris, instead it's just like all these mishmash parts falling into each other in this really kind of awkwardly held together way. And you're like, it's standing up, but oh my God, please don't push it. Like it's going to fall over. And that's like how all computers run is that
it didn't used to be like that.
Well, no, it didn't used to be like this when there wasn't like complicated shit like GUIs and fucking
I think it
whatever
really started,
the hell the internet is.
the
Like,
internet
it's
really
just-
allowed for this rapid production of software. So these days it's just like features. We have features in all the software that we run that are just hanging on themselves by a thread, and there's only the one or two people inside the team that ever saw the code, and it's just like it's not like integrated completely, and that's why not all software, but some software just keeps introducing and removing features.
Our entire computer infrastructure was like in danger because people didn't plan for the very not distant future of the year 2000.
like
we have the year
like
2039 that definitely is an issue. I think it is.
But there's some things that are like just confusingly bad. Like at work, we have an application that we use for loan management, and it creates this file called program in your C drive. But it turns out that when you're migrating from domain controllers from one domain to another domain, you cannot have anything called program in your C file because it will not move that file over. And so there's just this flurry of people saying, I can't do this migration because it's telling me no. And we're like, okay, well, you finished all this stuff. Everything's correct. What's happening? And you have to like do a super deep dive into like not just event controller, but actually like, into the migration applications log files and the log file just says, I ain't gonna fucking move this thing. And you go, well, why? And it says, I ain't gonna do it. I don't need to talk about it. It's not
and
your
who
fucking.
knows who programmed that?
Yeah,
even?
it's none of your fucking business. But I'm not doing it. And so
Yeah.
you go, okay, so there's something in this folder that it will not move over. And so you have to do, because God fucking damn it ever tells you anything, you have to do it manually by removing every single file in that directory and then doing the migration and seeing which one of the things finally gets it to go. And you go, it was you all along. And like, so
Yeah.
then you have another problem. Okay, well, an application we have no control over creates this file that causes problems for us. How do we deal with that? How do you like not have that happen? And so like the way you have to do it is you need to have someone go on there physically and remove the file and then tell them, do not open this program, because if you fucking open it, even while the migration has already started, you will destroy everything. So don't touch this application. And that's just like, that's modern day. That's a 2021 problem.
It's gonna get worse, only worse.
And now take this event and think of every single USB device you have plugged into a computer right now has its own drivers, runs with its own stupid rule set in accordance with that operating system, but doesn't take into account any other applications that exist. So your mouse has drivers and it does things on its own little world. And here comes along your fucking display that has a USB port, blah, 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 and it's like, what is that thing in the way? And it just punches it out, and now your mouse doesn't work. And your mouse has no fucking idea what happened. It just goes like, I don't know, man. I'm not gonna touch anything on your computer. And you're like, what's happening? And your monitor's not gonna say it punched the shit out of your mouse driver. It's just gonna say like, I'm working fine. Your mouse goes, I'm not working fine. And you have to sit there with your stupid little fucking investigator spyglass, like, which one of you is lying to me? Like, it's terrifying.
I was so confused
it
about my
sucks.
problem at one point that I bought new cables for my monitors.
That was a good.
Yeah,
that was a
like-
good idea, actually. That,
that-
could have been
and
the,
that
the
could
thing.
I
be
hate
it.
it. It's so
that,
fucking
that absolutely
frustrating.
could be it, because that's what's also shitty is that your fucking like display cables have their own amount of process and information going through them.
I've had
so
issues
if like
with
one
that.
of
yeah.
yeah, if like one of these little wires is fucked up, a wire you cannot see, do not know exists, and don't even know what it's attached to, doesn't do its one job, then you have a problem that could be a million problems. And
Yeah.
like computers are awful. They're literally like computers are basically existing in a time where cavemen exist. We are oonga boongaing our way through fucking modern technology. We have no fucking idea how half this shit works. We just show up and we're like,
So much
moves.
of our
The mouse-
society depends on like shareware that some guy made in his free time that he doesn't profit from.
Yes,
Like
Yeah,
entire
and, oh, the
entire like mega corporations like require those things that are like
Yes.
made by some guy.
the internet is the worst. Imagine like the internet is built on all of these support structures from like
It's all Linux for one,
like-
which is
like
largely
years. Yeah, but they're
produced by people.
But they're all yeah, they're all this freemium shit made years ago by these people who were just like, I fucking want to do this one goddamn thing and no one will do it for me, so I'll do it myself. And
Yep.
they do it and everyone goes, hey, that was a pretty good idea. And so they all just like piggyback off of that guy. And this guy's like, all right, well, I'm gonna die one day and this is gonna be someone else's problem. And no one picks up the baton. And then suddenly someone comes along and goes, I'm gonna like kick that leg out. I'm gonna do it. And there's no one to say no, don't
And-
do it, because no one knows it's gonna
that's
happen.
that's called a Windows update.
And it could be a Windows update. This happened with oh god, what was it? SSL. SSL had this problem recently where like, oh, there was
yeah, I
just
remember.
an exploit someone found, and someone had to like go, who's in charge of this? Who's in charge of who updates SSL? Who fixes this problem? And like the entire like Google is having a crisis where they're like, we can't, nothing works because this fucking. I don't know who owns this.
The
Who
idea
owns
that
this
the idea that
application?
Flash just decided to go away.
I think
Yeah,
that,
well,
It's
but
just
Adobe
gone
owns
now.
that.
I
Like
know.
Adobe owns that
Yeah,
application, but
it's
there are
not some
things.
random dude, but it is still
there
like,
were-
wow, that a lot
Yeah.
of the world ran on that kind of. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, and that's
not
that's
even
just
that
how
it's not even that it stopped getting developed. It's that all of it stopped working.
yeah, someone just pulled the plug on it.
It's
And like, could
terrifying.
you imagine?
What the fuck?
Like if Oracle right now woke up today and said, you know what, fuck the planet, and they just destroyed Java, you would cripple the the planet.
Java is
the
also,
planet would just
but Java needs to go as well. To be fair,
Java is the backbone of modern internet.
it is
Like
yeah,
without
it is.
Java, the internet just stops. It
We're not talking
ceases
about
existing.
JavaScript. We're talking about Java.
No,
specifically.
Java, like Java itself. Like it's so important that they had to put it into HTML, because if Java just vanished, the entire internet would vanish. And so like that's
It's not
terrifying.
in HTML.
Why would
what are you talking about?
It is. HTML6 has Java built into it.
Oh, really?
It has to. It has to have it, because otherwise, again, what happens if Oracle woke up and goes, I'm not
Oh, I see
doing
what you
this
mean. I see what you
anymore,"
mean,
And
yes.
they just walk away, and the internet just goes like, bye, I guess. We're
Yeah,
gone.
they're
See you
making-
later.
they're
Like,
making it
You
open,
can't check your
basically.
One day they're just like,
Yeah,
well, that
you
was a
can't-
fun experiment. Done with it though.
Yeah, like you can't check your email, you can't go on websites, you can't fucking anything. Everything's gone. Every single avenue of the internet runs with Java as an implied existence into the world. And if it just goes away, then
But is that on server side?
well, I mean, no, it's not on server side, because servers are using like scripting language. Like you're accessing like
Yeah.
Python or MySQL
But
or things like
websites
that.
don't use
And-
only some websites use Java. Most of it is just
but it's the-
JavaScript, which is not Java.
True, that's true. There is a lot of JavaScript that is that can escape this problem, but again, there's a lot of but that doesn't mean much if you think about like, okay, well, like 10% of the internet survives, or like 20.
No,
that's
I
still
think it's
a
a-
lot
I-
of the internet gone.
No, I think it's only like 5% of websites. It's only old websites that use Java still. I'm not even sure if you still
Really?
can. Yeah. Java is like the Java is like Flash. It's basically an application layer.
Oh
So
shit,
is
we gotta like go.
We gotta go.
Yeah, no,
Also,
that-
we have
that is-
we have-
Yeah, we're really overtime, and people are like expecting to like be going to a raid tonight.
okay. No
So
Java.
that was our
we'll look-
very, very angry, shouty podcast. I hope you hated it. Unsubscribe. Bye.
Yay.